Can I have a motion to open the public meeting? Moved by Commissioner Hassan, second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor? Motion passes 8-0. I'd like to call the meeting to order and invite the JROTC at New Era Academy to present the colors.
Order. Arms. Post. The colors. Ready? Cut.
So I'd like to acknowledge and thank the members of the JROTC from New Era Academy, Cadet Commander Brandon Lewis, Cadet Fernando Woodson, Cadet Takaivo Thompson, and Cadet Ayanna Waller. I'd also like to thank the student performers from Connections, starting with their director, Mr. Brandon Booth, Christian Burgess, Nikaya Handy, Michael Wilson, Ayanna Jalen Harris, Isaiah Hicks, Demira Billups, Trinice Carter, Corinne Johnson, Kanye Saxon, Cameron Taylor, Ricky Howard, McKee Lee, Heaven Osborne, Cameron Phillips, Michael Holland, Cortania Payne, Kylie Bowling, Zoe Fauntleroy, Jernell Jordan, Davon Moore, Nia White, Zanaya White, Janori Grissom, Makira Dingle, Takira Dingle, Dietrich Jordan, Amani Lemon, Kayla Taylor, Damian Barry, and Davia Charles. Thank you so much for your performance tonight. Let's give them another hand. I'd like to turn it over to Vice Chair Chinia, who's going to recognize some members of the community who we've lost.
Thank you. I'd like to take time to recognize the passing of city school students. Xavier Charlton was a fourth grader at Robert W. Coleman Elementary School. He was a very caring and loving young boy who often showed compassion and respect to all. He was the class representative and a great leader. He had quite the old soul, engaging in conversations that were well beyond his years. We will continue to cherish the memories he has left with us at Coleman. Xavier will be greatly missed by his family, school community, and friends. Damone Anderson was a senior at the Reach Partnership School. In his short time at Reach, Damone touched the staff and students with his million-dollar smile and gentle demeanor. He frequently communicated his plans to graduate from school and to move his mom and child into a safe neighborhood. He will be greatly missed by his family, his school community, and friends. The Reach family will work to honor Damone each day by smiling just a bit brighter. Joseph Shavers was a second grade student at Federal Hill Prep. He was sick for a long time, but he was enthusiastic about learning. He would always tell his parents how much he loved his teachers and classmates and was eager to learn. Joseph's teachers, through the home and hospital program this year, remembers that he was such a wonderful personality with a heart of gold. He was the oldest of 3 children. He took the duties of being the oldest very serious. He loved superhero action figures and he loved dinosaurs. He loved singing along with the Disney movies, such as Rio and Coco. It was a pleasure teaching him, and he will be surely missed. Joseph will be greatly missed by his family, teachers, and friends. Corey Fenwick was part of the Infants and Toddlers program. Corey and his twin sister Tori were born remarkably early at 26 weeks. From the beginning, Corey was a fighter. Although his sister passed away in the NICU, Corey made it home. Always happy, energetic, and curious, Corey was an intelligent, vivacious toddler who will be greatly missed. I also want to acknowledge the passing of 2 administrators who worked within our system for many years, Mr. Judson Wood, who passed on November the 18th, and Mr. Thomas Husted, who passed on November the 19th. Will you please join me for a moment of silence for these members of our school community? Thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the prior open session meeting minutes and the closed session summary? Motion to approve by Commissioner Berkeley, second. Second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor? Motion passes 8-0 with 1 absent. Would now like to invite brief reports from our committee chairs. I'd like to start with Commissioner Bondima, who's going to share some updates from the recent Operations Committee meeting, and she will also discuss issues from the May Legislative Committee where she represents us. Commissioner Bondima?
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll start with the May meeting first because I'm going to go through that quickly. As the board representative on the May Legislative Committee, I wanted to start to provide an update on the meetings we hold because they are very insightful. We meet at least once a month during the legislature interim and may meet more than that during the legislature session. This is really important meeting because they review what things that's going to happen in January. We met on November 26th, discussion center. I don't want to go through everything, but it's centered around the adoption of the May 2019 legislature position. They will adopt unanimously and are a complement to previous and draft legislature positions of the current school board. And as a reminder, there will be a legislative public forum on December 13th at 7 p.m. There was a discussion about the Kerwin Commission was on the agenda, and initial costing out of the recommendations at that time was around $3 billion, and that for only the costing out from the recommendations of 3 of the 4 working committees. And since the May meeting, Kerwin has met again, and the remainder working groups reported out, and the cost rose to $4.4 billion. And also, at the May meeting, we discussed concerns about several State Department of Education regulations that will be upcoming. One dealt with the proposed regulations of the Interagency Commission on Public School Construction, and the other was on the proposed regulations for gifted and talented, both of which staff are currently reviewing and will offer comments later. And we discussed the state budget and fiscal outlook, which looks rather good for the next few years. Okay? And anybody would have any questions, I'd be happy to answer at some point. And also the Operations Committee, we discussed talent and organization development, budget development updates, procurement, and had lengthy conversation about procurement, which we'll discuss later. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commissioner Bondima. Next, I'd like to invite Commissioner Hassan to report from the Policy Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Kashani. The Policy Committee met on November 20th, at which point we had a number of great discussions. Highlight to me was we had our follow-up update on the equity policy work and where we are with that. And I'm very, very happy to once again let the community know that we have hired Dr. Tracy Durant to work on systematic equity transformation for the district in the director position. Looking forward to furthering that work as we move through the spring. The Policy Committee also talked about policy JEA, which is about attendance, which clearly states what happens if a child is unexcused or absent from school for an extended period of time, as well as protecting the rights of parenting and pregnant students and children in that policy. Policy ICA was on the agenda, the school year calendar, the number of days and the holidays. That has been deferred to January, and we'll be meeting then. The next meeting is the 18th of this month. Commissioner McFadden will be chairing in my absence, and they'll be discussing policy DJA, which is on procurement, policy LBD, which is our charter lease policy, and policy JJA, referring to student clubs. As a reminder, we do accept public comment and input at those meetings, and all are welcome to see the board webpage or contact the board office for more information on how to make that happen. Additionally, I'd like to draw the community's attention to the fact that we are going to be using part of the January policy board meeting to have an open forum discussion on policy JBB in sexual discrimination to get the community's input in advance of fleshing out that policy. We tried it with the equity policy, and it seems to be working well to get community input first and then create a draft. So we're going to go forward with that again. So right now we're targeting January, so be on the lookout for that. We will announce at the next policy meeting update at the board meeting when for sure that will be taking place. But just to start putting it on your radar, if you know student groups or community organizations that have a vested stake or expertise in information around sexual discrimination, gender identity discrimination, please do ask them to keep their eyes and ears open so that they can contribute to that policy formation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hassan. I'd like to turn to Commissioner Berkeley for an update from the Teaching and Learning Committee.
Teaching and Learning Committee met on December 5th, and we had a series of reports on students' progress through different curriculum, if you will, in different schools, and we will not meet again until next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Berkeley. I have just a couple of brief remarks. First, just as a reminder of the format for tonight's meeting, it's a little bit different. The regular public meeting is going to go 5 to 7, and then we're going to adjourn. We're not going to really leave. We're just going to end that meeting. And then we're going to reopen for a public hearing on portfolio recommendations. There will be 2 of those. One's tonight, and then the other one is next week. So just a reminder to people. Next, I want to acknowledge a few gifts. First was a gift of $195,000 towards air conditioning and heating units at Lakewood Elementary from the Ravens Foundation. And it's worth noting that this is both, this contribution is comprised of both money from the team itself as well as from individual players from their social justice fund. It's quite a remarkable contribution in that the individual players had to make presentations to the entire team to pick projects to which they can contribute, and they picked putting air conditioning into this school. So it's a quite nice contribution to see them come together like that. Second is acknowledge a gift of $2,500 worth of vouchers for school uniforms to students that have requested assistance from Foreman Mills. We always appreciate help with the uniforms. And last but not least, I want to acknowledge a person who is retiring from the city school system after 32.18 years service. Now, what is 0.18 years? I'm not sure. Somebody else can do that math, but that just means that this person has served city schools for over 32 years. So I'd like to acknowledge and invite up to receive a certificate Mrs. May Williams. So it doesn't look like she's here. If somebody sees her, come. If you could let us know, we'll stop what we're doing and acknowledge her with a certificate. But thank you. Okay, let's see. Thanks. I'd now like to have a motion to approve the personnel, employment, and payroll agenda, as well as the appeals and hearings. Motion to approve. Commissioner Chinia, do I have a second? Commissioner Richardson, all in favor? Commissioners McFadden, Hassan, Bondima, Chinia, Kashani, Frank, Berkeley, Richardson. Motion passes 9-0 with one absent. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Santelises for her comments.
Thank you, Chair Kashani. I would like to invite Chief Grant Skinner for this evening's PEP.
Good evening, Dr. Santelises and Commissioners. We have 8 appointments to announce this evening. And most folks are here with us to be recognized. First, Shanika Herndon, currently Educational Associate at Carver Vocational Technical High School, is appointed Educational Specialist 2 for transition, effective January 2nd. Diane McKelvey, currently Educational Specialist 2, is appointed Special Education Liaison, effective December 12th. Lori Hines, currently Interim Director, is appointed Director, Student Conduct and Climate, effective December 12th. Nia Berry, currently Educational Associate at Fort Worthington Elementary Middle School, is appointed Assistant Principal at the same school. Shawnette Williams, currently Educational Associate at Digital Harbor High School, is appointed Assistant Principal at that school. Tanira Pitts, currently Educational Associate at Francis Scott Key Elementary Middle School, is appointed Assistant Principal at that school. Robin Stewart Bay, currently Educational Specialist 2 for IEP Development and Implementation, is reassigned Educational Specialist 2 for Transitions. And finally, Nanika Barnett, currently Assistant Principal at Arlington Elementary Middle School, is appointed Interim Principal at Pimlico Elementary Middle School from December 3rd until June 30th, 2019.
And I would just like to also say that, just say a little bit about Ms. Barnett, that she had her first teaching experience as a teacher's assistant in an after-school program at the YMCA. She joined City Schools in 1999 as a third-grade teacher at Garrett Heights Elementary School. Nanika has been a student teacher there. She graduated from Morgan State University with a degree in elementary education. She later served as a math instructional support teacher, academic dean of instruction, and assistant principal, a role she continued through this year at Arlington Elementary Middle, and we are very pleased to have her serve, as Chief Grant Skinner said, as interim principal at Pimlico for the remainder of the school year. Thank you. And yes, we do read your life when you get appointed. So I will just continue by saying good evening. And next month, the district will launch our United Way campaign. United Way has more than 100 partner organizations that provide much-needed services to families across Central Maryland, including many organizations and services that directly benefit our schools and students. City Schools staff have historically been among the most generous contributors to United Way, and we want to keep it that way. I encourage everyone to continue this tradition when the campaign launches on January 15th. You can choose the organization, which is one of the things I know a lot of people appreciate. You can choose the organization you wish to support by contributing by check or online, and you can even take advantage of our convenient payroll deduction plan to spread your donation across the year. I'm now pleased to welcome Dr. Andrea Bowden and Monique Sims, chair and co-chair of this year's fundraising campaign, along with Bruce Kronig and Sophia Minnow of United Way, to give us an overview of the great work being done through United Way of Central Maryland. And as we get started, I just want Dr. Bowden and Ms. Sims to know that I have already received rave reviews from the United Way of Central Maryland president, who tells me we are well underway with a much stronger start than we have before. So I want to thank both of our city schools partners, staff for really helping out and supporting us already. So you've already made a splash. So that's a good thing.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises, and good evening, board chairs and Madam Chair. I'm Monique Sims. I'm the Manager of Partnerships and Volunteers in the Office of Engagement, and I serve as one of the co-chairs for this year's campaign. I'd like our team to introduce themselves before we get started.
Good evening, everyone. I see some old friends on the board. Former boss.
Great.
We're very pleased to be bringing United Way to the city schools. The campaign is from January to March. What we're trying to do is increase both the amount of money donated and the participation rate. We're trying to go closer to the coordinators in the schools. We have 123 of the 173 schools participating at this point. We're involved in training. And as we speak this week, the coordinators are getting their bag of training materials. And we look forward to at least 10% participation in the schools and $400,000 in donations.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. It's an honor and a privilege to be working with the Baltimore Public School System for the United Way campaign this year. You actually touched on a lot of our highlights there. The fact that we are working with over 100 partners in the area, Baltimore City as well as Central Maryland, and 5 of our pillars, out of respect for time, I'm just going to touch on lightly, our education, family stability, health, employment, and of course our 211 helpline. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Bruce to maybe give you a little bit more about what that's about.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bruce Kronig. I'm the Director of Development for the United Way of Central Maryland. We're very proud of the work that we do in Central Maryland and also with your partnership within the Baltimore City Schools. We fight for the health, education, and financial stability of every individual in every community, and we do that through the key initiatives that Sophia outlined. Specifically our family stability work, where we help families who are facing homelessness or those who are homeless find a safe and affordable place to call home. We implemented this program about 7 years ago. We've helped over 1,700 families, of which 98% of them remain safely housed. It's a successful program that we're very, very proud of. Our On Track for Success education initiative helps students who are falling off track of high school graduation get back on track, identifying them who are falling behind because of behavior, coursework, or attendance. And we put a team together within the schools to get them back on track, and we've helped over 750 students so far since this program 3 years ago. All of this, though, is supported by 211 Maryland, and if you leave with nothing else through tonight and through the campaign, please take 211 Maryland with you. It's the largest advice and referral service available to anybody, anywhere, free of charge, that provides access to resources and support for housing, energy assistance, and food. Give you an idea, they've answered 112,000 calls for help just last year out of our office in Baltimore City. So we're very proud of the work that we do. We hope you support the programs that we offer, but you can also support any agency through the United Way campaign, which allows them to be more successful and more efficient and more effective by designating your pledge dollars through the campaign to that organization, allows them to commit their resources to other means versus development. Thanks a lot for allowing us to be here tonight.
Yes, thank you. And so with this history of giving, we're just asking all employees to continue in 3 simple ways. So, learn about more of the campaign through the United Way, online, and or through us here at City Schools. Going through the campaign, when we start in January. So January through March is the official campaign, but so we're looking forward to engaging everyone and then just making that pledge. It's very simple, but very powerful. So thank you. And we welcome any questions if you have any.
Okay, well, I just want to, again, thank you all for all of your work. United Way just has continues to partner with City Schools hand in hand. And so it does make really for a great incentive for us to really contribute to an organization that is boots on the ground with us here in City Schools. So I want to thank you all. And again, a big thank you to our City Schools team for your work too, both Monique and Dr. Bowden. You guys are already on the move, so I appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you. Here, I get this for you.
So one of the things that we have committed to and that I've said previously, and that is that as schools work to develop their budgets, we really are working to make sure that they are doing so with both the perspective and the feedback from their larger school communities. We have communicated continually and will go on doing so that really the majority of families, while they absolutely want information about district finances overall, their entry point is really their child's schooling experience. What will the budget at their child's school enable their children to experience, the opportunities that they have? And so this year, what we're really working on is to ensure that all parents are aware of the really important opportunities that they have to engage with their school community. We have posted the school level meeting dates on our website. You will see those up, I believe, as early as this evening. This year, all schools will hold a priority engagement session. And at this session, families can give their input about what they feel is important for their students before budgets are finalized. So this, families, is the opportunity for you to come, share, make sure that your principal, your teachers at your school understand what your priorities are for your child's education this coming year. Additionally, all schools will host a community budget forum, which should address these priorities that were expressed in the first meeting prior to submitting the budget. So again, these 2 meetings, 1 expressing priorities, 2 reviewing how those priorities were incorporated in a school's budget, should both occur prior to that budget being submitted. And then after that, each school will be called and be expected to review what the final submitted budget is for their particular school community. I really want to encourage as many people as possible to engage in these experiences. If you have any questions, you are free to reach out to your child's school or your neighborhood school, the school that you are connected with. If you're having challenges doing so, you can certainly call our Family and Community Engagement Office. My understanding is that the vast majority of schools do have the dates for that first session posted. Any schools that still have missing next to them, that we are working expediently to make sure that those dates will be up as well. But again, we want to encourage everyone. Okay, and it's up right now. So it's on the front page of the city schools website, so you don't have to dig. I know I get feedback when I'm in the grocery store. It's great you have it on your website, but Dr. Santalisa, I can't find it. So, and yes, I do get stopped in the grocery store. But one of the things that we really worked hard to do this year is to make sure that it's on the front page, easy access, and Ms. Christy Lewis is letting me know in real time that it is in fact posted, so you can go there now. Following tonight's meeting, as Chair Kashani mentioned, the board will be conducting a public forum to gather feedback on our portfolio strategy for next school year. I think it's important to remind everyone that our strategy of creating a portfolio of schools with different structures and programming is based on the belief that one size, one type of school does not fit all, and that our goal is to make sure that all students, all families have access to high-quality options that meet their needs and interests. We got to see some of this in play this past Saturday. I had the privilege of attending. Mayor Pugh was also there. The City Schools Choice Fair that we held at the Convention Center. And there were so many families, young people, some young people there with their friends, which I was most impressed. They didn't have an adult presence, but they came out because they thought it was important. I saw teachers with students, school staff with students, and then, of course, families. And so really, our mission, as reflected by the fair, is to provide excellence in education for every child. We are not there yet, but that is the goal. We're moving towards that goal. And in the context of Baltimore's disparities of income and opportunity, this means establishing a strong and deliberate focus on equity to ensure that every child receives what she or he needs, no matter where he or she lives. Equity, as illustrated by our emphasis on the whole child and our blueprint for success, is both the framework upon which our portfolio strategy is constructed and the lens through which its implementation is evaluated. But we cannot forget that equity also applies to everyone in the school family. Portfolio decisions affect families across school communities, requiring increased opportunities for public feedback and input on decisions that impact their schools and communities. That is the purpose of tonight's forum. We look forward to your engagement in this important process. And Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks for this evening.
Thanks, Dr. Santalisa. I'd now like to review the items for the consent agenda to ask the board if there are any items you want to pull for further discussion later in the meeting. I want to remind the public that the procurement items on the agenda, in tonight's example, all of them have previously been reviewed in public meetings by either the Teaching and Learning Committee or the Operations Committee. It doesn't mean we can't still pull them, but they have been reviewed in public meeting. On the consent agenda, the first item is the charter application appeal from the Da Vinci Collaborative. I am going to pull that. We're not going to do that by consent. The Da Vinci Collaborative team will have a chance to speak to us, as will the Office of New Initiatives. Next on the consent agenda, item 8.02, supplemental appropriation literacy curriculum. 8.03, supplemental appropriation Title II initiatives. Okay, on the procurement items, item 10.01, Shoot Sports and Riddell All-American. (10.02) Behavioral Health Systems Baltimore. 10.03 Certiport. 10.04 Center for Supportive Schools. 10.05, Springboard Collaborative. 11.01, AirTech Refrigeration and Mechanical Contractors. 13.01, BMS CAT, Inc. 13.02, Kalyani Environmental Solutions, LLC, and Total Environmental Concepts, Inc. 13.03, Restoration Engineering, Inc. 13.04, Commercial Cabling and Sound, Inc., and Denver Elec, Inc.
Madam Chair, could you pull that?
Yes, I can pull it. Do you have specific questions?
Yeah, I do have several questions.
Can you let us know so the nature of it so staff knows what they're looking
Oh,
up?
good. I still do not understand and I talked about it at the meeting, in reference to a typo being for the $100,000, and it was a typo, it should have been another number, and I'm not clear on how a typo affect the amount of money, and it wasn't corrected. I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I would like for them to explain that.
Okay, so if staff can be ready later in the meeting to talk specifically about the amount of money involved in item 13.04.
And it's written, actually, it's written in the document. They just need to explain it, how
Fair
this
enough.
happened.
Fair enough.
okay?
Yep, fair enough. Item 16.01, the TASA Group. 16.02, Dr. Neil C. Porter, MD. Item 16.03, Forensis Group, Inc. Okay, that's it. So when we vote later in the meeting, after public comment, I will ask if there are, as a result of public testimony, if there are any additional items to pull. As of now, the only item we're going to pull for further discussion is item 13.04. Okay. Before we get to general public comment, we have some groups that we offer additional time to speak at every meeting. Tonight, we have two groups who have requested time to speak. First is the Baltimore Teachers Union with Peggy Gladden. I thought I saw Miss English. Oh, there she is. So it's not Peggy Gladden, it's our friend Marietta English. Oh, there you are. So
Good
it's
afternoon.
good afternoon, evening.
Oh, yes, good evening. Thank you. To the school board chair, Dr. Sandalise, fellow teachers and PSRP parents, community, and students, thank you for the opportunity to speak at tonight's school board meeting. Before I share my comments, I would like to take a moment of silence to acknowledge the passing of two Baltimore City educators. Kevin Boone, who was an educator at Digital Harbor, and Dawn Fitzpatrick, who was a special educator. I also want to acknowledge the passing of Edward Horsey. He was a field representative with the Baltimore Teachers Union for decades, and I'm sure Ms. Chinia remembers him. He was a staple in our office with you here at the district and with our members. Please keep the Boone, Fitzpatrick, and Horsey family in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you. I'm here tonight to speak about two important issues that are impacting our members. First, school safety. We have all seen the footage of teachers, PSRPs, and school staff being assaulted by a small portion of students who are in desperate need of help. Though we understand that many factors combine causing them to lash out, our members and our students should not have to bear the brunt of their anger and frustration. Our current code of conduct does not include protections for teachers, school staff, and other youth who are assaulted by students. Therefore, I called for a task force meeting to address the code of conduct. So we have representatives from the district, school police, elected officials, parents, students, teachers, PSRPs, other school staff, clergy, and the community groups. So we could sit down and look at the code of conduct and the state code of conduct that impacts our code of conduct, because we're always told that we need to look at that when it comes to the code of conduct. So we would like to create some new guidelines that will provide the protections that are so desperately needed. That meeting will take place at the BTU on Friday. Next is coal schools. I am also concerned about the heating conditions of our schools. As temperatures continue to drop, we at the BTU receive a number of calls and photographs of classrooms that are below 60 degrees. 60 degrees is still cold, and cold teachers, PSRPs, and children have a hard time teaching and learning when it is cold. I do receive calls from Dr. Lynette Washington when there are issues with heat in the schools, and she has shared that the district is providing space heaters in classrooms, but those heaters are not doing an adequate job in keeping the classrooms warm. We must raise the 60-degree threshold in order to provide a warm environment that is more conducive to learning, because I don't know about you, but 60 degrees in my house is still cold. When I go home, I have to turn the heat up, because if you leave that heat off and it's off all weekend, when you come back on Monday, that building is cold, and it takes much longer to heat that building up so that kids can be warm. So we hope that at the end of this year, when we come back in January, that heating situation will be adequately repaired. So today, Governor Hogan tweeted that the preliminary price tag presented by the Kerwin Commission was too expensive, and that he did not plan to raise taxes in order to provide funding to our classrooms. Well, boo-boo on Governor Hogan, because what is the price tag for educating our children? BTU plans to go to Annapolis during this legislative session to fight for funding, and I hope you will join us as we travel there. We must fight for funding because our members continue to work in less than ideal environments with oversized classrooms and limited resources, because they know the impact they have on the lives of our students. They know what our children need. They know that our children are our city's next leaders. They deserve to feel safe and warm at their schools and in the front offices and classrooms where they work and they teach. Thank you.
Thank you, Marietta. Any questions, comments?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner McFadden?
thank you, Ms. English. I have a question for Dr. Washington. When we came in this, I'm sure it has been discussed before, but how did we get to the 60-degree mark in the buildings, that particular temperature for our schools?
So that was discussed with a number of our advocate groups who've come together, and they talked and they made that recommendation for the 60-degree mark for the schools, and that was included within our heating policy.
So we went on the recommendation of advocacy groups and community groups for the 60 degrees?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I would invite anyone to go into a classroom, into a school at 60 degrees and see if it's not cold.
Oh, I know. I would agree with that, but I just wanted to know how we got to that 60-degree mark, and if it was from our community members and advocates that pushed while we made that decision. I just wanted to know how we got around to it.
I would ask that they revisit it.
Because it was before I
last
was
year-
on the board, that's why I asked.
Absolutely. And last year, we had a number of groups that came together. They actually understood what the overall challenges are with buildings, and there were a number of groups. We're more than happy to let you know the groups that all weighed in. Matter of fact, we had a subgroup of teachers who actually got together, and that was one of their recommendations as well. I completely understand Ms. English and others. I will just say for the record, my house is at 60. That doesn't mean anything except to say that we took feedback, and I think that there are varying views of what is warm and what is too cold. I think we would all agree that ideally, We would want every building, and as Ms. English noted, I think that is why we are pushing for increased capital improvements. But again, we had a variety of sectors. That it was not just two people in a back room coming up with 60. We had emails from a wide variety of partners last year, and we're more than happy to let you and the public know who those folks were who weighed in on that recommendation.
Ms. English, I thought you were starting to say something else. Do you have something else you want to add to this? Because I didn't want to cut you off.
No, just that I think that it's time we revisit that 60 degree. And I mean, I think that, I don't remember us being a part of it, but I certainly think we should revisit 60 degrees because we still get calls about it being cold in their buildings.
Okay. Commissioner Frank?
I just wanted to ask Dr. Washington, is it set at 60 degrees or is 60?
So our set point is generally between 68 to 72. 60 degrees is the critical, where we have to make a decision of whether we're going to close a building.
Right.
So it's not that
Right.
it's ideal to be
So
at
60 is the
degrees.
floor, but they're
Exactly.
generally set at 68.
Exactly.
Okay, just want to be clear about that. Okay.
Thank you.
Bondima?
Yeah, 1 second, I have a question as well. Is it, Dr. Washington, is it possible, and I don't know how this would affect our budget, but is it possible instead of turning the heat off on the weekend, we can cut it down a little bit so that Monday morning, because for any environment, any building, when you turn everything off, it takes a while, especially with the temperature being under 32 degrees.
So our heat is never turned off.
Okay.
Our systems are all, because our pipes would freeze, a number of different things, so
Right.
we don't turn any of our systems
I'm-
off.
So you turned it down?
Yes.
And it's turned down?
So, I mean, it would have to be determined based off of what particular schools. So some of the schools that you talked about that may have a heating issue, it's not that we've turned the system down. But there are some of our schools that may overheat, and so during the weekends, we may turn those systems down, so when the children arrive at the schools, they're not coming into a very hot building.
Yes, Student Commissioner?
Is it based, good evening, Ms. Washington. Is it based off of the size of the school, or is it just every school is the same temperature?
So it's based off of our schools are all different, right? There are some schools that are set because of whatever their HVAC system, where you can go in and you can do set points. There are some systems where, because they may experience overheating, then we may turn the systems down. So our general set points are between 68 and 72 degrees.
Everybody good? Thanks. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to invite our friend from PCAB. I'm told tonight it's going to be Jamal Jones. Hey, Jamal.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to be brief this afternoon, and I am very, very cold. I hope everybody gets warmer later on. So first thing, just one, we got an upcoming meeting with the CEO that we'll be checking in soon, just updating on that. Two is PCAB has been really working on building out the engagement strategy. What we've been trying to do is meet with Offices of Community Engagement, and they've been meeting pretty regularly with us to figure out what the strategy might be, whether that might be by neighborhoods or looking at community schools, but looking at accessing the community schools point as the initial contact point for a lot of spaces in conjunction with the push to get the PTOs activated. And the goal is to try and start moving out into schools and having folks doing actual outreach in January with a core focus of kind of galvanizing people around Kerwin. Consequently, folks have been participating in a bunch of education forums recently, kind of getting feedback and listening to what different people are proposing for Kerwin to try and have that be like a means or some information that we can disseminate to folks. And as a part of that, we also plan to be present Thursday at the legislative forum here. So folks should be aware about that and just make sure that people know to come to that. And I think that is those are the high level updates, and also Shantae is back with us, so that is the highlight.
That's great news. And I think we've commented on this before, at least I have, that appreciate the efforts that you guys are making to the additional outreach, sort of the activating of the different school groups and helping PCAB to be as representative as possible. It's a huge help to the district, and it's just terrific. Not surprised, but thank you. Any other questions, comments for Jamal? Okay, thanks. There were no other advanced signups. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anybody. I'll just sort of call off the groups, and if anybody is here, CCAC, PTA Council of Baltimore City, AFSCME, Pizzazza, CUB, Associated Student Congress. Okay. Now going to turn our attention to general public comment. And there's quite a number of people commenting on some of the portfolio recommendations. So just as another chance to remind people that from 7 to 9, there will be yet another opportunity. So if you weren't able to sign up for this public comment, there is another 2-hour window later in the evening. So with that, our first, let's see, I can't read the handwriting, so I think I'm going to go to my email. Kaniqua Hankin? Hakeem, thank you. Good, thank you. Sorry for the mispronunciation.
I'm sorry. As a teacher, just closing in on my 5 years in Baltimore City, I can honestly say it's nothing more rewarding than serving and educating every scholar that walks through the doors or halls of the buildings I've stepped foot in. The education starts from the way we greet each other in the morning to the way my parents and I establish a partnership and then a friendship. The life lessons about grit, leadership, self-esteem, finances, and wellness in the mind and body is the next education priority. And finally, the last on the priority list is the difficult academic and rigor demands that are placed on students as a class, school, district, and state level. We aren't just dealing with any students. We are dealing with Baltimore's toughest and strongest soldiers. Their zip codes and financial status is a direct link not only to the education they are receiving, but also to the pipelines waiting to incarcerate those young, creative, determined, intelligent minds. These students know loss, hurt, and pain and defeat all too well, but they still can find a million ways and reasons to put on their boxing gloves and get in the ring every day and fight. While they are busy fighting, I've also watched the same system created to protect them underhandedly throw more blows that can break the strongest of us. These blows come from the fist of poverty, politics, and most importantly, a budget. Due to these internal wars within our school system, we have potentially broken the only opportunity of structure, success, and hope our kids have. Which is the only reason why these kids decide to show up to school. The underhanded blows I've mentioned are included with the surplus of long-term teachers who are pillars of the community and school. We have measured the progress of great teaching to a SLO and observation score. We have measured the progress of great students to data growth. We have measured the progress of a great school to an SER and SPM. We have measured the amount of resources and funding students are able to receive by the amount of bodies in the building. However, not one time do we measure the disconnect and disruption of the education in a child's psychologically and emotional state, the growth that cannot take place without structure and stability. This vicious cycle contributes to scenarios like this, where more than 1,000 children at Monarch and children all across the city will get crushed and bruised by the underhanded fights the system throws. It is time to come up with a creative solution to fix these holes in our system rather than keep covering it with a Band-Aid. Instead of creating temporary solutions that does more damage, then the damage that was already created, let's just try to fix it. We don't have fate over who shows up in our school system, our buildings, or our classroom, but we do have fate in deciding what we do when they're in our space. I know that we can do it. I definitely believe in Baltimore City schools, and I'll leave you with this. What if a builder knocked down their buildings when it didn't measure up to what it needed to be? What if a scientist and investor shut down their theories when they couldn't prove it and articulate it? How would our world change today?
Thank you, Ms. Hakeem. Thank you. Our next guest is Victoria Beard.
Good evening, everyone. Imagine growing up in the Murphy Homes Public Housing Projects of Southwest Baltimore. Imagine having elementary school teachers who encourage, guide, and recommend that you attend an advanced academic program on the other side of the city. Just imagine living in and around violence, unspeakable violence, those that no children or even people should be exposed to, and yet still be successful. Imagine being so successful that you have the academic ability to attend the best high school in Baltimore City, the Baltimore City College High School. Imagine becoming a teen mother as a sophomore in high school. You know, a stereotype. Imagine not knowing if you would even graduate with your peers. Imagine having your teachers, past and present, speak up and about how much you've earned and deserve the right to walk across the stage. Imagine graduating from City and attending college with the sheer passion to give students of Baltimore the same thing that you received and instilled in your own children. Something that no one could ever take from them, the importance of having an education. Imagine graduating with a degree in early childhood education and the tools to successfully facilitate learning in Baltimore City. Imagine living and loving your career so much that you continue it for 16 years. Then, imagine going to work on the first day of American Education Week in 2017, excited about all the amazing activities that your students will take part in, only to be met with a hostile parent at your classroom door. Imagine walking away from this parent to ensure that the confrontation doesn't ensue. Imagine being called down to the principal's office for a conference with this same parent. Imagine walking into the principal's office. Imagine that this parent decided to reach into her pocket and spray you in the eyes with mace, then proceed to attack you. Imagine walking down the halls with mace all over you, eyes burning, not being able to see, with blood coming down your face, with second graders and their teachers watching you in the halls as you proceed to speak with your school, the school, and the city police. Imagine having children watch you as you're escorted to the ambulance. Imagine that after 16 years as a Baltimore City educator, you are now questioning your life's work and purpose. Imagine that not being able to do what you loved and worked to do for 20 years. Imagine coming back to work and never feeling like yourself again. I'm sitting here in my car daily, wondering why I'm here. Imagine feeling physically sick every morning when it's time to go to work. Imagine questioning your purpose every single day. Then you're approached with the opportunity to change your life for the better. Monarch Academy, this school has reminded me of my purpose. It reminds me of my why for being an educator, my why for obtaining my master's degree in education, my why for pursuing my PhD in this same field. Walking the halls of this beautiful building reminds me of what a school should look like, what a school should feel like, what a school should sound like. A school should be clean. It should be a safe place for its students. You shouldn't have to wonder if you're going to be attacked today or tomorrow.
Ms. Beard.
Okay. I love going to work. I love the fact that for the first time in 17 years in this career, I have a class with full parental participation and contact. To skip through all of the rest. Being a proud product of the Baltimore City Public School System, I am these students and I come from their same communities. Knowing the current state of many schools in Baltimore, Monarch is a place that reminds me of why and what it is to be an educator in this system. So allow us, the administration and the current staff at Monarch, the opportunity to show you what we can and are able to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next guest is Stephanie Dagenhart. Dagenhart. It's right on the sheet.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Dagenhart, and I'm an 8th grade English language arts teacher, and this is the 6th year I've been teaching in Monarch Academy. I told them I would try not to cry. I came to Monarch when my first school, Patapsco Elementary in Cherry Hill neighborhood, was shut down. What is ironic to me is that when my first school was designated to be closed, I had no emotion. There was no fight, there were no tears, there were no concerned students, no vigilant parents checking in to see how they could help. You see, this school was old and outdated. The water fountains were taped off. The 3-story brick facade had no air conditioner, and every winter, about once a month, we would get smoked out from the furnace system and have to evacuate the building. My school, Monarch Academy, is beautiful. The walls are hand-painted by local artists. Our gymnasium is bright and cheery, and our sound system for our stage is a stage for the art of our annual musical performances. Our teachers proudly display their student work on our freshly decorated bulletin boards, where students have a chance to see their hard work be celebrated and enjoyed by all. We love Monarch because not only is it a beautiful place to work, but beautiful things happen here. You would never know that by walking inside my classroom doors that 3 of my students have parents who are currently incarcerated. They're too busy defining our vocabulary words to think about that. You would never know that 2 of my current students are being raised by their grandmother. They're too busy answering questions about our latest novel, To Kill a Mockingbird. You wouldn't know that 5 of my students have an IEP because they're too busy working feverishly to close that achievement gap by using Google Classroom to practice lessons on prefixes and suffixes. You also wouldn't know that 21 out of 24 of my homeroom students aren't reading on the grade level that they're currently sitting in. You wouldn't know it because they're too busy collaborating with their peers, leading discussions, and grappling with larger concepts that are bigger than themselves. My students are amazing, and they understand our mission to serve and to become something greater than oneself. Their perseverance is the reason I love my job and why I choose to stay at Monarch Academy year after year. I see them as more than data points and park scores, and I am able to measure their growth beyond just what a piece of paper says. I wish that you all could too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Dagenhart. Our next guest is Diana Severa. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Mrs. Spear, and I know you've been hearing a lot about the teachers at Monarch. So with the recommendation to close, what we've been talking a lot about is our park scores. And as a second grade teacher, that's just not something I can get on board with. I want to show what my second graders can do. And when I talked to my second grade gentlemen here today, they wanted to show what they learn and how they learn to show you the wonderful things that we do at Monarch. So they're going to be helping you out by learning the parts of the brain. And we do something very special at Monarch Academy. Every student, all 1,000 students in our building, learn the parts of the brain and what those parts do. And that's part of our whole child approach to really teach students the importance of how your brain works and how understanding your brain can help you use your brain. You guys ready? Up a little bit. Oh, class. Mere words. My brain. Understanding my brain helps me use my brain. Understanding my brain helps me use my brain. The prefrontal cortex helps make decisions. The motor cortex controls movement. Visual cortex controls sight. Wernicke's area controls hearing. Broca's area controls speech. Understanding my brain helps me use my brain. Thank you, class. Kiss your brains. So we just wanted to show you a little bit about what's going on in some of our lower classes, because I know that we often look at a piece of paper and we see park scores, and that's what we really chalk up the value of a school to. And we have so many things going on in our classroom. In just K through 2, we have almost 400 students, which is almost the size of many elementary schools. And these students do not want to be forgotten about what they do every day. And when we discussed what do we want to show people that we learn, we want to show them the parts of the brain and how understanding our brain helps us learn better. So the last piece that we want to present is that we have a letter written from every student in our school, also communicating all of the wonderful things that they learn and why we believe that we should get a chance to show you what we can really do. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, boys. Would it be possible for the young men to go to the microphone and let us know their names and what grade they're in? Oh, you're kidding me.
Say what?
Say your name and what grade you're in.
Who go first?
You can go first. You're like ready to use this mic, huh? Go ahead, Terry.
Man. What do I say?
Watch Terry. Go ahead.
Say it. My name
So,
is.
gentlemen, let's pause for a minute. The Christian will take the notebooks upstairs because we will have time to review them, not tonight, but after tonight. I'd like to return our attention to the two young men. If you could just state your name and what grade you're in.
My name is Terry, and I'm in second grade.
Thanks, Terry.
My name is Cartier, and I'm in second grade.
Thank you, Cartier. Pleasure to meet you. Our next guest is Amy Lorden.
Good evening. My name is Amy Lorden, and I'm a first grade teacher at Monarch Academy. I wanted to take this time today to talk to you a little bit about how Monarch has shaped my teaching career. I have wanted to be a teacher for as long as I can remember, since I was in the first grade. When applying to college, it was never a question. I attended Loyola University, Maryland, and I was able to experience elementary schools all across Baltimore City. I developed a love for the students in Baltimore City and a passion for teaching. However, that passion was almost lost. My first year teaching in Baltimore at another school in the northeast part of Baltimore was extremely challenging. I felt defeated almost every day. I felt alone, lost, and overwhelmed. I began to reconsider my teaching career. I was extremely appreciative of my team that year, but I felt no support from administration or the instructional coaches. I never received any encouragement, and I began to lose my passion for teaching. I had so many questions that went unanswered. I was begging for guidance. I was begging for guidance that was never received. I wanted to learn, I wanted to improve, but I couldn't help but feel like nobody wanted to teach me. After months and months of tears and stress, I accepted a job at Monarch Academy. I attended Monarch's new teacher training over the summer, and I immediately knew I had found the right place for me. From August to June, I received the guidance and support that I needed. I met with my instructional coach and mentor weekly and collaborated with colleagues. I attended professional development sessions weekly where administrators and veteran teachers explicitly modeled instructional strategies. Monarch has provided me with the skills and the knowledge I needed to start my career as a teacher. In only a year, Monarch was able to transform me from a defeated, struggling first-year teacher into a confident and successful team lead. I feel support from fellow teachers, staff, and administration every day. When I feel encouraged, confident, and successful, I am able to bring that same energy to my students. As a district with struggling students, we should be building great teachers to serve them. Monarch has done this. Monarch Academy focuses on the whole child. In order to service the whole child, Monarch provides its teachers with the skills and training necessary to do this. We work with children who have experienced more trauma than many of us could ever understand. We have built a supportive family at Monarch, and taking that away from not only the students, but the staff and teachers as well would be a shame. Monarch has taught me that we are all lifelong learners. I will continue to grow as an educator, and I hope you allow us to continue to grow as a Monarch community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lorden. Our next guest is Tracy Whitehead.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, Ms. Jenga. Miss Chenia was my principal, so I'm kind of like excited.
I wish I had $1.
Full disclosure, this is one of my wonderful students from Liberty Elementary School years ago.
Raise your hand if you've heard like a million people say some connection to Miss Chinia. Miss Whitehead.
Thank you. Well, I am coming as a special education teacher from Monarch Academy, and I am coming because I have a story that I want to share with you. I thought about talking about where I came from and the people I've met, but I wanted to share with you a story about a number. And this is called The Birth of a Number. One day there was a number born, and the number was born in a hospital. It was 2 of 2, representing the second child of 2 children. And then that number became a discharge number, meaning that the child was going home. And that number became a Social Security number. That Social Security number then went on into an address, which also has a number. That number also became the zip code. Well, that zip code turned into the bus number of the student who would get on the bus based on that zip code. And then that number became the student number. The student number became the pupil number. The pupil number became the lunch number. The lunch number became the park number. The park number became the standardized score number. And guess what? After a while, you run out of numbers, and it just becomes another number, a number, a number, a number. We just keep giving birth to numbers. My question is, are we going to keep giving birth to numbers that stay still, statistical numbers, or students that continue on and do better things? My passion for becoming a special educator went beyond my wildest belief. I never imagined becoming a teacher. I kind of ran from it. But it went further when I found out I was pregnant with my son. And I found out that he was going to be a number, but he was going to be an additional number. He was going to have extra numbers. He was going to be autistic. And because of that, I decided to no longer allow the world to see him as a number, but to teach the world what those numbers mean. When we write an IEP, we're not writing an IEP for just another number. We are writing it for a student. And I no longer wanted to allow my son to be in a classroom full of teachers who did not understand what it meant to be special. Yes, we bleed blue every single day, but he also is amazing. He's an intelligent person. And at Monarch Academy, we look at those numbers. We see them. We see them as bus numbers, and that's the only time we look at a number. When they're in that classroom, they're people. They're individuals. They are scholars. They are someone. So yes, as a special educator, I do bleed blue for my son, but I also bleed orange and black because I am a monarch butterfly. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Whitehead. Ms. Whitehead, we have a question from Commissioner Frank.
Thank you for coming, and thanks to the kids, second graders, and everyone here from Monarch. And I find your testimony very compelling, and the fact that you're here is very telling. I just want to ask you, I want to stipulate that Park is not the end-all and be-all. It should not be the determination for this board to use to make a decision about closing or keeping a school open. But the Park scores are low. They're low relative to other schools in your sort of same demographics. They're low relative to the district and the state. And I don't mean this question to be judgmental or critical, but can you speak, and I'm not asking you to speak for the school, but maybe you can. Can you talk about the academics? Can you talk about the academics in the school, how they are reflected in Park?
Okay, so first let me say that we have over 9 buses from all over the city, in addition to about 2 additional door-to-door buses. So we have students from all over the place, and a lot of our students last year were fairly new. Many of them came in without anything but a name, and had no idea what they could and could not read. And so for the first time, many of those students were exposed to the strategies and the modifications and accommodations that they deserve. Not even just the students with IEPs, but students in general. They didn't know how to prepare for a test. And so we spent a majority of last year just preparing those students for the test. So when the time came for the Park, for many it was the first time that they had to look at a number and really see it as something that could be a positive or a negative. But many, they just wanted to be finished the test. It was just another assignment. So we spent most of last year just teaching them what the Park was, how to take the Park. And for them this year, they're looking at it, and I understand that it's not supposed to be low, which I completely understand. But for these students, if I've never known a test before, my normal is just to do whatever I do. And that was their normal. So this year, now that we're looking at, possibly closing, now they're like, okay, so there's tests that I have to do better on. And there's so many students who are like, okay, I'm doing better. I mean, there's so many students. This year we have 2 honor roll assemblies for elementary because students are pressing so hard to be better than they were last year. We can't expect students to be normal when the normal has never actually been presented to them. You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Whitehead.
You're welcome.
Our next guest is Rebecca Yenowin.
Good evening, everyone. So it's been a while since we've been here talking about restorative practices, so we thought we would check in. I'm Rebecca Yenowin. I'm from Teachers Democracy Project. And it was back in 2017 that Dr. Santelises shared the goal that we were moving towards becoming a restorative district. We commend the work that has been done to get there to date. We know we have a cohort of 15 schools that have taken on restorative practices, and we have 15 more coming next year. While we have a laundry list of tweaks to the implementation process that, of course, we would love to see, we have 2 primary asks that we will focus on tonight. The first is about resources. So we know that the literacy, that student wholeness is a huge part of the blueprint. It's one part of a 3-part set of goals. So we hope that in the next year, as we start the budgeting process, that student wholeness receives the same kind of investment that literacy has received in the past year. So we're really hoping that we see the blueprint come to fruition, that the values are reflected in the way resources are allocated. The other primary thing that we're recommending is that we start to see how the practices are embraced by the district. How could we see restorative practices at the board level? How could we start to see it as a part of human capital's work? How could we see it in staff meetings, with adult conflicts, and family and community engagement? When we use, how could we better use restorative practices around school closings? From the outside, it seems that some schools get it and some schools don't. Our organization has been leading a working group, a learning community around restorative practices, which has drawn a mix of people, both administrators and teachers. And 2 key questions we ask them. One is, how's it going at your school with young people? And by and large, they say, great. And then, how's it going with your staff? Not so great. And so that to me means that we have embraced the first layer of this work, but not the deeper layer. So it's time, and I'll say also, we observed a circle at Hampstead Hill. They've been doing this work for over a decade now, and it was the most beautiful circle I've ever seen. About 50 staff members all engaged in a circle where there were tears and there was deep sharing. My colleague who was with me said she learned more about those teachers in 30 minutes than she had in her 4 years at her former school, where they also had taken on restorative practices. This school also has a very low turnover in staff. They're also the highest rated school according to the Maryland State Report Card. We can't probably credit restorative practices for all of that, but we know that supported teachers makes a difference. This is a team that felt deeply valued, and that was clear from the way that they had their go-around circle. So the point is, when we show through our actions that students, teachers, and parents are all worthy of support and being listened to, we engage in true culture shift, and we need a shared understanding that adults are part of this culture shift. And that includes district staff, principals, teachers, and parents. So we'd like to see an honest conversation about what being a restorative district looks like.
Thanks, Rebecca. I want to acknowledge that Commissioner Berkeley, when we first talked a couple years ago about this, had said she, was very interested in playing a leadership role on the board in helping us think about all the steps it would take to be a restorative district. We sort of take this as an invitation to separate it from your first comment about the allocation of resources, because there are some things that within the resources we have now, we now looking specifically at you to lead us in this, that we really could think about has the board been trained? How do we use it in our own work? Has Dr. Santelises' cabinet been trained? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just picking on her because she's next up. But I think it's good that you pointed out you know, it's when you're trying to implement something with kids, you probably need to look at your own house first and get it in order before you're trying to get everybody else's house in order. So I think, I don't want to call it a challenge, but it's a good reminder that we have more work to do than just thinking about how many additional schools get that. So I don't know, Commissioner Berkeley, if you want to say anything, but I know this is something you've been thinking about for a very long time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for bringing this up. And I'd like to, if you can reach out to me or just get me your contact information so I can reach out to you, maybe we can.
Absolutely.
You can help me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'd appreciate, and, you know, game on. She's your partner.
Great.
Thanks. I'd like to welcome our next guest, Mark Washington. I didn't see him. He usually stands. Does anybody know? Yeah, does anybody know if, I'm going to call the next guest and then. Oh, okay, so the 7 o'clock? Yes. Okay, great. Thanks. Our next guest is, and I apologize if I say this wrong, Netsanet Gray? Did I say that right?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
Hi, my name is. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
My name is Netsana Victoria Gray, and Sorry, I have a cold. I'm Netsana Victoria Gray, and I attended NACA 1 for K through 5. I now go to RPCS, and I'm a senior, but NACA shaped who I am as a person. It was like a groundwork and like a layout for how I see myself as a black woman. And now that I go, black girl, I'm not a woman yet, but now that I go to a predominantly white private school, part of the tri-school, Gilman and Bryn Mawr over the bridge, I can tell like my counterparts and my friends, like when I went to NACA, I learned about myself and my culture and my people and my history, and closing that down or recommending for it to be closed wouldn't be fair for all the children that go there who are mostly African American and who gain a sense of their self, because we don't learn about it at my school, and I know there are other schools where you don't learn about who you are because the way history is written is sometimes incorrect, and NACA makes sure that the students understand who they are and how they should see themselves and that we're all equal. And having that as a kindergartner through 5th grade, I think that'd be a very different person if I went somewhere else or if I went to RPCS for K through 5, because I wouldn't have a sense of self that I gained from NACA. And that's not fair to all the students who go there now. And like my friends that go to McDonough or Poly City, Crystal Ray, Western, they all have told me like NACA was their route, the layout. And to take that away isn't fair to the hundreds of children that have gone there and that go there now, because they would be losing something. And I know that NACA like shaped who I am. Like I keep repeating that because it really did. And in classroom discussions, you see that come out when we're talking about certain things. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Our next and final guest for general public comment is Dr. Cecil Gray. Dr. Gray, is that your daughter?
Yes.
It was just a wild guess.
Victoria, Netsana Victoria Gray.
That's what I was basing it on. Not to mention that she looks just like you.
Even with the hood on.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chairperson Cassiani, CEO Dr. Santelises, Vice Chair Dr. Genia, and commissioners all. Just appreciate the opportunity to share again. Want to say thank you for the commissioners, those who were able to come by the Monday right after Thanksgiving. We appreciate that, coming to the school and seeing what we do, watching the teachers teach and the children learn. We want to thank Mr. Roberts and Ms. Parrish and Ms. Fox and Ms. Carter and Ms. Hoffman, I think, for coming by yesterday, speaking with the teachers and then later the parents. We appreciate it. And I think what I want to share tonight is we've been true to at least the original vision of charter schools, public charter schools, as when it was born, when it came forth from the federal government. Maybe it's changed, I don't know, I don't think so, but the original model out of the federal government back in 2004, 2005 when we started, was that the schools be small class sizes, small communities, so that we get to know each other. And also, the original vision is that we be creative and innovative. We were and we are creative and innovative, and we are still small. Some of our colleagues are now 800 students in the public charter schools, 1,000 students or more. We're still what the original vision said to be. And we appreciate the opportunity to do the work. We want to continue to do the work. And we hope that you all will consider the packet that will be forthcoming to Board Executive Attorney Gant and all of you all. That is coming, and we've made some additions that were requested. We have more documentation for you, Dr. Bondima, as far as the raw numbers in addition to the percentages. We have that, and again, it's going to be a very nice packet, and we look forward to having that to you maybe the end of this week, certainly next week, before the break. Thank you very much for the opportunity to serve our students for 14 years now, and we want to keep doing it for another 14 times 14 times 14 years. Thank you.
Sir, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I was.
If you could introduce yourself first?
Yes, my name is Reverend Danny Hopkins. My wife and I moved here to Baltimore in May of this year. She's pursuing her doctorate at Hopkins. I'm at Columbia and Princeton. We got involved with NACA because of research. I run and own and operate an international Hopkins educational consulting company. We operate schools in 5 different countries. So I'm a volunteer. We believe in volunteering, giving back to the community. That's what I do, an official volunteer. Giving advice, what our company does. We go into schools, help them become compliant for FERPA, Title I, 504. The last school I was with, a public school, we went from being a focus school to one of the top performing schools in the state in 1 year. So I'm here, and that's in Missouri.
He'll be back in the second half to
Okay.
present.
I just
Thank
want to
you
make
all.
sure,
We
since you brought a guest, I want to make sure we had a
appreciate
chance
it
to.
very much.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you very much. That concludes public comment. So I want to ask the board if, based on public comment, if there are any other items that you'd like to pull from the consent agenda? With that, I want to call for, there are 2 items that we pulled before we vote. We pulled item 8.01, the application appeal for the Da Vinci Collaborative, and we pulled item 13.04 for commercial cabling and sound and Denver Alec. Can I have a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda? Motion made by Commissioner Frank. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Bondima. All in favor? Commissioners McFadden, Hassan, Bondima, Chinia, Kashani, Frank, Berkeley, Richardson. Motion passes 8-0 with 1 absent. So what we're going to do now, let's see, I want to make sure I get this right. I think we're going to have the item 13.04, commercial cabling. I see Blaine coming forward. Are you going to discuss that?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Bondima, if you could just restate your question, and then I will let Blaine talk to us about it, and then we'll vote.
Right, thank you. It was in our documents in Operation Committee, and for the Board Commissioners, very briefly, it was just I just did not understand why it was a typo, wasn't caught in the beginning, and where let me read this to them real quick. The interim chief operating officer requests the board's approval to increase the current contract with Commercial Cabling and Sound Incorporated and Denver Elite Incorporated to provide miscellaneous electrical work increased by $300,000 from $100,000 annually to $400,000 annually. The initial contract was approved by the board in September 26 for an estimated expenditure of $100,000 when it should have been stated $400,000 per year based on a historical spend. when I saw that, I had a great concern how at that meeting, how a typo occurred, and it wasn't caught even before it arrived to the board, and also where would the money come from to that $300,000? It just isn't clear to me.
I think there was a mistake on my part when I said typo. It wasn't a typo. The board did approve $100,000
Right.
based on at the time. Based on our historical spending trends, we are spending in excess of $100,000 to where we go to at least $300,000. We need a $200,000 increase with the annual $100,000 annually. It's a $300,000 for 3-year contract for $300,000, but when you break it down per year, it's $100,000 annually, not $300,000. So we need $300,000 annually per year, not annually for the contract. That's where the mistake was. Not so much a typo, it's just a miscommunication.
Well, you can understand why I was
understand.
concerned.
No, I
say
understand.
Typo, when you have a typo,
Right.
you correct it at the desk,
I
at the
understand.
computer.
Yes, right, I understand.
No, was that okay?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we
I always say
appreciate that.
things that I'm.
Right.
But
There are,
in-
we do have funds in the operational account for this.
Okay, because it's a big gap.
Yep.
It's from 100,000 to 400,000.
Correct.
So I wanted the board commissioners to hear it, to see if I was
No, you were right.
stepping too far.
No.
Okay,
Appreciate the clarity.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
So any other questions on this item? May I have a motion to approve item 13.04, Commercial Cabling and Sound, Inc. and Denver Ellick, Inc.? Motion from Commissioner Berkeley. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Bondima. All in favor? Commissioners McFadden, Hassan, Bondima, Chinia, Kashani, Frank, Berkeley, Richardson. Motion passes 8-0 with one absent. Thanks, Blaine. Next is the other item that we pulled, which is the Da Vinci Collaborative Charter Application Appeal. I just want to let people know how this is going to work. First, we're going to have a presentation from Ms. Alvarez from the Office of New Initiatives. After she's done, Da Vinci will have an opportunity to speak to the board for 4 minutes, I believe. And then after Da Vinci, while Da Vinci is there, the board can ask questions to your heart's delight. After that, Da Vinci will then sit back down, Angela will come back up, and we will read it will sound like a prescribed script. That's because it is a prescribed script. And then we'll retake the vote based on the request from the state to take a fresh look at the Da Vinci proposal. Fair enough? So Angela, if you could.
Hello, everyone. I am Angela Alvarez. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of New Initiatives.
And I'm Trevor Roberts. I'm a specialist in the Office of New Initiatives.
City Schools takes the review and approval of charter applications seriously. Per the district's charter policy, IHB, charter operators are important partners in helping the district to both offer additional innovative learning opportunities and creative educational approaches to improve the education of students. In exchange for this autonomy and flexibility, public charter schools accept higher levels of individual school accountability. Therefore, when charter applications are submitted, the review is considering whether the application is a strong plan that is designed for the proposed school's target population, and that the applicants have the skill set and knowledge to implement, manage, and operate the proposed school pursuant to the level of autonomy and accountability applicable to charter schools. The CEO's recommendations presented tonight reflects input from staff in the Office of New Initiatives, as well as staff from the academic office. In particular, John Neubauer, who's the coordinator of World Languages, Maria Villamore, who's the coordinator of ESOL, Dawn Shirey, who's the director of 21st Century Learning, and Laurel Hannion, the director of Differentiated Learning.
So we're going to start the presentation just giving a quick overview of where we are in the application process. So in the 2017-18 charter application process, the Da Vinci Collaborative submitted an application for review. After an extensive review process, the board voted to not approve the proposal in their June 12th board meeting. The basis for that rejection was that the academic plan, which consists of integrating personalized learning, project-based learning, arts integration, sheltered instruction observation protocol, and online elements, did not adequately explain how the curriculum would be implemented in terms of professional development, ongoing training, and planning time for each component. The application did not explain how the various elements would work to form a coherent curriculum, did not explain how tensions between the different approaches would be resolved when they conflict with each other. The application is reliant on online tools which would effectively create a blended learning program. However, the application did not adequately address how it would prepare teachers or students for a blended approach to teaching and learning. The plan requires teachers duly certified in ESOL and core content areas such as math or science, which are particularly hard to hire areas, and the teacher recruitment plan did not adequately address how it would recruit these duly certified teachers qualified to deliver the academic plan. And finally, the application did not adequately explain how teachers will develop and monitor personalized learning plans for 500 students. The applicant group then appealed to the Maryland State Board of Education. The State Board remanded the application to city schools to give the organization an opportunity to address 6 questions regarding their application. The 6 questions are shown here. We're going to go into detail about each of the 6 questions later in the presentation. So this is just a quick timeline of events. Important to note that the applicant group was given a time in the November 13th board meeting to provide testimony to the board and to respond to questions from the board regarding its submission on the answers to those 6 questions. Yesterday, December 10th, staff shared the CEO's recommendation with the applicant. And tonight, we are sharing that recommendation publicly. The applicant will have an opportunity to respond to the recommendation, and the board will vote on the application in light of the additional information and the testimony that you hear tonight. And just to give a quick reminder of the school proposal, the school was proposed to be a high school serving grades 9 through 12, starting out with 125 students and expanding to 500. The proposed location is Southeast Baltimore with an opening year of 2019-2020. And the recommendation of the CEO is to not approve the application.
So we're going to go into detail. So just for members of the public, so this is very clear. In the PowerPoint are the summary of the key concerns. I'm going to go into more detail about those, about the responses and the concerns related to the responses. At a certain point, I'm going to actually bring up an exhibit.
Apparently, we're having technical challenges. We can't do
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay. So we'll do that when we get to that. So let's go back to the slide where we're on. Joe. Thank you. So we'll. Okay.
Let me see if we could flip back and forth between the two, maybe, when you get to that point.
I think that's fine when we get to that point, just for, so that we're really clear. So the first question that the State Board asked Da Vinci to address was, how would the applicant implement a complex curriculum in terms of teacher resources? Teacher resources, as laid out in the board's rationale, are professional development, ongoing training, and planning time for each component of the plan. The applicant indicates that a major component of its personalized approach to learning is using the Summit Learning curriculum. Summit Learning requires that people who purchase its curriculum attend in-person professional development in the form of its onboarding summer training, as well as a fall and spring convenings. The onboarding training, which is a mandatory component by Summit Learning, is typically a week long and is held in cities other than Baltimore. While Da Vinci is cognizant of the requirements for this training, it does not include time for this training in its original plan, which it references in its supplement, nor does it submit a revised professional development plan to include this training in its supplemental materials. The only reference to professional development for Summit Learning is in Da Vinci's plan is a brief mention of a workshop led by Da Vinci as part of the schedule on day 3 with other topics and as a single day of focus on day 4. And this does not meet Summit Learning's requirement that the school participate in its week-long full day of off-site professional development. And so, Joe, if you can kind of go to that schedule. And the board has copies of these materials. And this is for people who may be having a hard time. These are posted on board docs, so members of the public can see this as well, along with Da Vinci's response. In their response, they refer to their original application, and thus we looked at both in evaluating this. And so if you take a look at their schedule, you will see that there's other professional development topics listed, and that Summit Learning is only comprising of a one full day and part of another day. And as stated, Summit Learning actually requires a full week in the summer, and so that's not reflected here. Additionally, Summit Learning requires schools to participate in 4 days of full-day professional development during the school year, 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring. These sessions are also not included in the original application, nor are they addressed in Da Vinci's response, nor does Da Vinci's supplemental response include a revision to the professional development plan. Given the partnership with Summit Learning is a major component of the school's application, a schedule reflecting the core element of Summit Learning's professional development requirements should be included, and they are not. Da Vinci, in his response, mentions that Summit Learning operates public charter schools in other states, which is true. And so while Summit Learning is not a co-applicant here, I'm going to be very clear about that, and Da Vinci is just planning to use their curriculum. For schools run by Summit Learning, they provide and require teachers to participate in 40 days of professional development annually. Da Vinci's professional development plan does not meet this requirement, nor the minimum 9 days that I just went through. Da Vinci also indicates, and Joe, you can go back now to the presentation. Da Vinci also indicates it will use the Sheltered Instructional Observation Protocol, also called SIOP. It is another method of teaching that is research-backed and designed to improve general education instruction of students who are English learners. According to the Center for Applied Linguistics, who developed the SIOP protocol, it takes a full year with coaching for teachers to become proficient at instructing SIOP. It is a specific way of planning, teaching, and assessing students that it takes ongoing professional development and coaching to implement. Neither the original application nor the supplemental response includes specific professional development for this protocol and method of instruction. The application does not provide an implementation plan for ensuring teachers learn how to implement and become proficient in the use of SIOP. It is not included in Da Vinci's description of their professional development plan. Da Vinci also indicates that arts integration is also a major component of its instructional approach. Arts integration is a specific method of teaching where educators integrate the fine and performing arts into the construction of each lesson and as a modality for students to demonstrate understanding. Lessons have both an arts and content-specific objectives. Students are assessed in both their understanding of the arts learning standard and the content learning standard. Da Vinci, in its original application, indicated arts integration would be part of all primary academic areas, as well as the Da Vinci Studio blocks. Professional development for arts integration is not mentioned in its supplemental response, nor is it included in the schedule or description of Da Vinci's professional development plan in the original application. The applicant also indicates that it will use sheltered content instruction, which is different than SIOP. So SIOP is a method of instruction that focuses on specific strategies to use in general education classrooms to meet the needs of English learners. Effective implementation of sheltered content instruction requires a teacher who is certified in both ESOL and the content area, or 2 teachers carrying each of the certifications. In its application, Da Vinci indicates that the classes would use this method of instruction and are in math, science, and social studies. In sheltered content instruction classes, English learners learn the subject content and the language skills. Sheltered content instruction is not included in Da Vinci's supplemental response, nor is it included in the professional development plan originally submitted by Da Vinci. There's also no ongoing professional development for this method of instruction. Another major component identified by Da Vinci is big picture learning. Big Picture's learning coaching services are included in Da Vinci's application and as part of day 1 of its professional development plan. While Da Vinci indicates it will work with Big Picture Learning to inform its professional development plan, it does not appear in subsequent days. The applicant includes a proposal to pay for services for Big Picture Learning for a 2-day design session, but does not include details regarding this process and how they will work with staff to implement. City Schools charter application asks applicants to describe your plans in detail for developing and implementing an effective professional development program at the school. Please describe the content, frequency, and timing of your current professional development plan and the plan for creating future professional development programming. How will content be determined over time to adapt to the needs of the school, students, and staff? How will effectiveness of the school's PD programming be measured? The supplemental information Da Vinci provided to address this question does not cure the concerns. The original application indicated these multiple approaches to teaching and learning, but does not include a professional development plan that includes each of these components. The plan included in the original application also does not meet the requirements laid out by the school's partners, Big Picture Learning, Summit Learning. It also does not include a plan for ongoing support for teachers to implement each of these various methods as the school year goes on, nor for future years. In its supplemental response, Da Vinci still does not resolve these issues. They did not provide a revised plan and did not detail where, when, and how the professional development for these areas would occur as part of a coherent plan. It did not sequence the professional development for these areas. In fact, it largely did not address how it would implement professional development for these approaches. The response indicates that a plan for how it would provide ongoing teacher support has not been created. The applicant states, and I quote, "We are creating a schedule that includes 3 to 4 or 5-day blocks of professional development time," found on page 3 of their supplemental response. So that means that a plan does not currently exist because they're in the process of creating it. While the applicant includes articles about how Summit Learning and Big Picture Learning works in other places, this is not the same as providing a specific plan for how these resources would be used in its proposed school in Baltimore. Additionally, as you can see from the document that's submitted by Da Vinci, it largely does not include the other elements it lists as core components of its academic plan. MSBE, no, Joe, you can stay on the, thank you. MSBE also gave them two more questions that Da Vinci addressed in the same way, and they're interrelated, so our review addresses them together. So for questions 2 and 3, there were, how would various elements work to form a cohesive curriculum, and how would tensions between different approaches be resolved? So again, the academic plan consists of integrating personalized learning, project-based learning, arts integration, sheltered instruction, observation protocol, and blended learning. Arts integration is a very specific way of instructing that requires both use of the arts and content standards. whereas shelter content and structure requires the teacher to teach both language acquisition standards and content standards. Additionally, the school also focuses on personalized learning. The application and subsequent response does not address which methods or approaches teachers should prioritize when instructing students. For example, for some students, demonstrating learning through the arts, a core component of arts integration, may not be the best modality of demonstrating learning. Personalized learning is focused on student choice and student need. So in order to address cohesion and how to resolve tensions, the response should have addressed the following questions. In cases like this, should personalization be the focus over arts integration? What percentage of instruction should be using arts integration over personalization? Likewise, when should SIOP take precedence over these other methods? The applicant's response demonstrates a lack of awareness of the specificity of these approaches. They write, walk into a DVC classroom, and you will see some students working independently, some working with the teacher, and some working with each other. The teacher may gather the students together to provide instruction on new concepts or to explain a new project. The class may meet all together for a discussion or presentation by some students to others. Students may be doing problems, reading a novel, researching, or conducting an experiment. Most importantly, they will be active participants in their learning. This response describes a general approach for learning found in most classrooms. It does not illustrate the specific approaches to teaching Da Vinci is indicating it will employ. This also does not explain how teachers will use the various methods to meet student needs. They simply state as a fact that teachers will use these methods to address student needs. The original application does not explain how each of the instructional methods work together for instruction, and the supplemental response does not resolve this concern. The applicant relies on generalities and addresses some elements individually, like personalized learning and project-based learning, but is silent on what elements of each approach overlap, which elements would be prioritized, which elements are most important, and other questions that get at how these components work together. Instead, the applicant simply states there will be no conflict and focuses its response on areas that are not part of core instruction and curriculum, like advisory, internships, and extracurricular activities. The next question the State Board asked Da Vinci to address is how it would prepare teachers and students to use a blended approach. Blended learning is a formal educational approach that includes online learning and some level of student control over time, place, path, or pace. The core pieces of the application are online learning platforms that meet this definition: Summit Learning and Arts Anywhere, where students have control over time, place, path, and path of their learning. While many in K-12 education integrate technology within the classroom, the typical use is not blended learning. Simply using video conferencing, podcasts, or digital resources are not examples of blended learning as Da Vinci posits in its response. It is also not the same as having students do some assessments or work online. Blended learning is also not the same as a college student reading material on their own, another example Da Vinci provided. A major component of blended learning is using online materials to give students control over how long they work on something, what they work on next, where they work on something, and their path for learning something. All elements of using Summit Learning and Da Vinci's approach. Providing professional development for teachers on how to use this approach while ensuring students are meeting learning targets, core content standards are met, and that students stay on track to meet the objectives of a unit or course of study is necessary for success with this approach. Likewise, students will need support in monitoring their own pace, using their time wisely, and ensuring they meet and understand what objectives must be met for each unit or lesson or course of study. As indicated in our analysis of question 1, Da Vinci's professional development plan does not meet the requirements of Summit Learning and does not include a plan for ensuring teachers learn how to implement this approach. Da Vinci does not provide a specific plan for how the student orientation will prepare students for this approach. So they mentioned having a student orientation, but they don't provide any details about what will be included and how it will support their approach. They also mentioned that Summit provides guides, but do not include it. Nor do they explain how these guides would work for their proposed school in Baltimore. Training and support for students and teachers on how to operate in a blended learning environment where students are not just merely assessing technology to demonstrate or learn a skill, but are involved in deciding the pace, the time, and the path of both learning and demonstrating learning is necessary. And again, no specific plan for this has been provided. The next question the State Board asked them to address is how they will recruit ESOL certified teachers. So as stated previously, a core component of their plan is to use the sheltered content instruction. So effective implementation of sheltered content instruction requires either one teacher who is duly certified in ESOL and certified in a subject area, or two teachers per course who are one who is certified in ESOL and the other who is certified in the subject area who co-teach that course together. Da Vinci indicated in its application that it will use the sheltered content instruction approach in math, science, and social studies. In rereading the application, they do plan to have two teachers in math, but only one teacher in science and one teacher for social studies. For those courses to effectively implement their proposed model, those teachers would need to be dually certified. The response they provided demonstrates a lack of understanding of what sheltered content instruction is, as their proposal indicates that their staff, they would have staff and people on their board mentor teachers. But that does not cure the specific requirements for dually certified staff. And the staffing plan does not allot more teachers for science and social studies to implement the plan. Da Vinci indicates that the founding board members will assist with this, but as noted earlier, Da Vinci does not have a specific plan for coaching or developing teachers in this method. Additionally, effective implementation requires staff with the proper certifications, and the applicant has not provided a specific strategy for finding candidates with ESOL certification, nor candidates who have both ESOL and subject area certification. That's not in their original application, and that's not in their supplemental response. The original application and supplemental response by Da Vinci instead indicates that they believe that the responsibility for finding these teachers rests with Baltimore City Schools. And I quote, they say, Baltimore City Schools bear some responsibility for recruiting appropriately certified teachers. If there is a high need in certain schools for ESOL or special education experts, Baltimore City Public Schools should be making affirmative efforts to seek out these individuals. Per the charter contract, operators are responsible for recruiting and selecting teachers. So the responsibility for finding individuals to meet a specific approach to teaching and learning belongs to an operator. And then the final question is how teachers would develop and monitor personalized learning plans. So applicants' response relies on advisory periods to develop and monitor personalized learning plans for students. The applicant indicates that their advisory model is based on big picture learning model, and that big picture learning has done this in other places where they provide ongoing professional development. As indicated in the summary to question 1, neither the original professional development plan nor the supplemental response provided by Da Vinci allots specific ongoing professional development time for big picture learning. The only reference to big picture learning in the professional development plan is part of the day on day 1, and is a generalized response of they will work with big picture learning to develop a plan. So part of a single day of professional development is neither in-depth nor ongoing. And the statement indicating the applicant will work with big picture learning to develop a plan is not a plan. Additionally, The agreement included in the application for 2 days of design with big picture learning is also not sufficient to qualify as ongoing professional development. In other words, the plan provided by Da Vinci does not provide time for the advisors tasked with monitoring and developing personalized learning plans to be able to implement this, since no professional development time is allotted to prepare them for this responsibility. Additionally, personalized learning plans cannot be monitored or implemented solely through an advisory. Da Vinci's advisory consists of a single advisor working with 15 to 18 students, but does not specify how content teachers will play a role in developing or monitoring these professional learning plans. Content teachers with specific subject expertise will need a direct role in this core component of planning for assessing student learning to ensure plans are tied to the objectives of each of the core courses students are enrolled in, and that activities and assignments align to the requirements of the course as well as student needs. Expecting a social studies teacher, for example, to be an expert on everything that 15 students needs, not just in their social studies class, but in math, or in science, or in English, or in other courses, in order to be able to develop and monitor a personalized learning plan, which will have objectives for each of those courses, is unrealistic. And there is no plan or professional development to have even those single people prepared to implement it because it's not reflected in their professional development. So I'm going to pause right here, and we're going to have Da Vinci come up and speak to the board, and then we will come back.
Thanks, Angela. So by the protocol, the Da Vinci team, we've heard from Da Vinci in the past, so that's why there's only 4 minutes. If this were the first time we were hearing from them, that wouldn't feel sufficient. But we've received a lot of material. We've reviewed all the material. After Da Vinci speaks with us, we'll have Ms. Alvarez come back up. As should be really obvious to everybody, we are not going to start the second meeting at 7 o'clock. My target for starting that meeting is at 7:30. My apologies, but it's really important that we give due consideration to this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Greetings, Commissioners. You are asked today to vote whether to approve the Da Vinci Collaborative's charter application. For the record, I just want to briefly recap Da Vinci's activities to date. We assembled a group and applied to Project XQ, a national competition to create a new high school in 2015. Out of 1,400 applicants, Da Vinci was one of 50 finalists, the only in the state of Maryland. After applying to obtain a charter to open a high school in March 2017, our application was denied. Feedback provided by ONI was taken seriously. We examined other charter applications and used that feedback to expand and improve a second application. We reapplied in March 2018, met technical review, and were interviewed by the Charter School Advisory Board in April. The advisory board recommended that our charter be granted. I want to highlight that fact. Although the CEO's office stated that our application had strengths, including efficacy of the curriculum, strong community support, a strong operating and advisory board, hands-on learning opportunities, that office nevertheless recommended denying our application a second time this past June, citing completely different reasons from the first application. The board voted to deny. DVC applied for a startup grant from MSDE. In a highly competitive process, we were one of 6 groups granted $900,000 in September. Please note that MSDE carefully reviewed the same materials that you received and affirmed the quality of our team and our plan. While waiting 29 days for the written reasons for denial, we began the appeal process to the Maryland State Board of Education. In October, the State Board reversed, not just remanded, reversed and remanded your decision as arbitrary and unreasonable. The reversal was based on serious procedural unfairness in your process and that your opinion did not list any fatal flaws in our program. The State Board of Education required us to respond to 6 questions that were posed. We answered promptly and thoroughly on October 30th, and we offered to speak with anyone for a collaborative conversation about concerns. City Schools, its advisory board, and you, the Board of Commissioners, have had ample time, 6 full weeks, to review both the State Board's decision and our responses to the 6 areas of concern. However, we have not been contacted by anyone to discuss the concerns presented tonight. This violates the State Board's requirement that applications be a collaborative, not an adversarial process. There are details that could have been worked out in conference with city school staff. Yesterday, at 2:10 p.m., we received a call from ONI in which Ms. Alvarez presented the alleged justification for denying our charter once again. Much of it was over and above the scope of the questions presented. Moreover, these concerns are not essential to whether we are qualified to open and operate a charter school and are once again arbitrary. The State Board did not ask us to rewrite our professional development plan or any other part of the application. Moreover, there are, once again, serious misunderstandings and misstatements in the ONI document that time does not permit us to respond to. Finally, the opinion of the State Board stated, among other things, that at least one day before a board votes on a charter school denial, the applicant should be provided with a copy of the CEO's recommendation. We did not receive the copy of that recommendation until yesterday evening, less than 24 hours before the board opened its meeting tonight. Thus, you are already in violation of the State Board's directive. We have met the reconsideration criteria, and the Office of New Initiatives has not met its criteria for a cooperative reconsideration process.
If you'd like us to wait until what time did you get it?
Last night at 7:30 p.m., is that the correct timestamp?
Yes. So we'll wait for 23 minutes if you'd like. If you're going to say, that's what we're going to do.
No, we'll continue.
Wait.
You're violating the spirit of the law.
No, we're not.
Ruling.
Not want to do, what I do not want to do is to continue if there's going to be an appeal on a technical violation. I really, because we're taking this seriously. We've spent a lot of time on this, even though I don't think you think we have. We have. And I say this with all due respect. If we want to continue this, if you're telling us now that you're going to call us on a technical violation, then I will pause for 23 minutes.
No, that's not what we're not basing it on that.
We're going to wait. We're going to wait.
Madam Chair?
Just hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
We'll sit.
Can I finish my 4 minutes? Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to, Ms. Luce, let's be reasonable. If we pause for 23 minutes, we will meet the intent, we will meet the letter of the law, which would be a lovely thing to do. The spirit of responding 24 hours, we sent it as soon as we had it. This was not a simple thing to do. We wanted to give it due consideration. So it's not like there's been somebody sitting on a document just like trying not to give you the information.
May I
You
respond?
You can, because I really.
Because Ms. Alvarez read exactly what she read to you, to me, at 2:10 p.m.
Yes.
So why did it take 5 additional hours to get it by email?
So you did have it. You just didn't have it.
No, I had it in my ear, but the requirement was to get it in
I don't know.
writing.
I don't know.
Okay, so
Honestly,
I'm not going to stand on that. I'm not going to
I
stand
honestly
on
don't know.
that technicality, but it was ready at 2:10 p.m., so.
Fair enough. So we're not going to pause, with due respect to everybody, we're not going to pause for 23 minutes because I don't want to get into a game where we're trying to, so I just wanted to check that. So another, I don't know, minute and a half or so, keep going.
Okay, yeah, it's really not that much more.
Fair enough.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We understand that in most cases, you respect and defer to the decision of city school staff. However, please consider the investment you are rejecting from MSDE. In addition, there is strong community support for an innovative, non-criteria high school. Most of you should have received letters and emails from parents, community members, school personnel, and politicians. We have met with a dozen guidance counselors who work with 8th grade students, and without exception, feel there is a need for a different high school than those currently available. The Da Vinci team is ready, willing, and able to open a high school next fall. We are in final negotiations for our lease and have begun interviewing for staff. Financial and human resource systems are in place. DVC has already shown the commitment and sheer tenacity that will make us successful. For the benefit of Baltimore students, please follow the State Board's ruling, the advisory board recommendation, and the demand here, and allow us to open in September 2019. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we're going to open this up for board questions. Commissioner Hassan?
Good evening. Thanks for coming back again for us. I have a question related to the first question by the State Board on teacher resources. When I go through the professional development plan that you did share, I'm counting about 7 staff positions that are not teaching positions. Right. Sorry, it was timely.
I'm going to just say for the record that we needed that.
Right. So if we look at just general, like, overestimating numbers, starting with 125 students, if we say that you had a $10,000 per pupil allocation, which we know is $927 something, that's $1.25 million. If you look at those 7 positions, and then you add a math teacher, science teacher, social studies teacher, English teacher.
I'm sorry, can you tell me where you're getting 7 positions?
I'm getting from the presenter is going to be the school counselor, or the department chair, or the guidance counselor.
Where did that come from?
From
Not
from this document you shared with us. Your professional 10-day orientation and professional development plan.
Okay, so you're assuming that these are staff positions?
Well, that's what I'm asking, is
No, they're
how
not.
you're going to afford.
No, we're not, a department head might be someone within our existing 7-person staff.
Mhm.
The guidance counselor is going to be somebody that comes in for that period of time. This is not.
So this is not someone you're going to hire. You're
Exactly.
going to count on the school district to
No,
supply
we're
you with
going
the
to,
guidance
we are
counselor.
going to pay these people a contract period, time to come in for a half a day to instruct.
Okay.
Just like John McGill comes in to do restorative practice.
So as a consultant.
Exactly.
Okay, so with that, then that changes things significantly, because I was at an average teacher salary of $74,000 a year. That was going to give you about $2,000 operating capital. And that was going to be a challenge. Then my second question around teacher resources is, you said that you are recruiting, and where are you recruiting? We have a general teacher shortage in Maryland anyway, and these are pretty highly specified positions.
We're getting emails almost daily for people who want to come teach at our school.
So where are you recruiting?
We don't even have to. It's just from people seeing our website and hearing about us. But we have recruited for the principals on Mighty Recruiter, which links with Indeed, and we've also posted things on Idealist. And those 2 things have also alerted additional staff people to contact us. So right now, we're not even in full hiring mode. Obviously, we can't be because we don't have a charter yet. But we did try to get some principal candidates in the pipeline, and that has created quite a bit of interest in.
And that's a diverse population of candidates?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. My second question, or my third question again on this line, is looking at your 10-day professional development plan. With the blended learning and the personalized learning, at minimum, there needs to be some sort of a digitized repository to track student progress. And according to this, you have a half a day of technology training. Can you talk about how that's going to be?
And can I just start? I want to address that plan you're referring to
Okay.
that was projected on the screen several times. That was actually that's just for the orientation for new teachers in-house. That doesn't account for mandatory training for Summit. So to be a Summit school, as Angela noted, and that's correct, that the teachers have to do training that's provided for free through Summit. That's intentionally not on that document because that's our in-house training. They still have to go to the week. We didn't even have the precise dates of that from Summit when we submitted that, but it's actually in the narrative of the application. So you can't, I would urge us not to just look at that document. That's just the 2-week intro training for new teachers in-house. There's additional trainings from Big Picture and Summit throughout the year that are mandatory to be affiliates of those organizations. And the Summit program in and of itself roots all activity around a learning management system. It's a personalized learning platform. So that Summit training that's required and free is inherently rooted in training teachers to use the platform, understand the curriculum that's Common Core aligned, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so then my last question on this line, and I'll turn it back over to whomever has the next question. I want to make a clarification to see if it was a word slip or an intentionality on your part. You said this will be a Summit school.
Well,
Why were they then not a co-applicant with you? Or is there something here that's?
we're not eligible to be in we can't sign a contract until we're actually
So your
have been
intention
granted
is
a
to be a
charter.
Summit school?
No,
We're gonna use-
We're gonna use their platform. It's a different thing. Summit schools are schools that they create.
Mhm.
They're mostly in California.
There's 11
That's
of them.
not, that was a slip of the tongue.
Okay, and that's all I wanted to clarify was
No, we're going to
that.
use their platform, but we're not a Summit-created school, because then, yes, you're right, they would have to be a co-applicant.
And-
So that was a misunderstanding.
Okay.
And so the 40 days that Ms. Alvarez talked about is not what we would require. However, we are going to have, in addition to weekly time to, coach each other, we have provided for all new teachers to go to the 2-week training, plus 3 full weeks throughout the year. So again, that 2-week orientation, that's for new teachers, and new teachers will also go, prior to September, they will all have to attend the 2-week summit program, which, yes, that does require travel to Arlington, Virginia, which we will pay for and have budgeted for. But, I feel like there are so many misunderstandings that were presented tonight that do not reflect what our actual plans are, and we have, in fact, budgeted for them.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll get
Both
to
in
those
time and
through
money.
questions. Thank you.
Other question, Commissioner Frank?
Right. Thank you for being here again. I want to start by saying how much respect I have for Ms. Alvarez and her team. They have a very difficult task. And let me start by asking some questions about where there has been some criticism. When you read these off, your curriculum is focused on personalized learning, interdisciplinary learning, project-based learning, arts integration, sheltered instruction, observational protocol, big picture learning, and internships. And the criticism is that they're not coordinated and that some of them are in conflict. So if you could address that, and secondly, if you could address which of these do you see as curriculum and which of these are instruction?
I'll get us started. And I'm glad this question is coming up, because I do think that when it's listed out in that list, it starts to seem like these are separate approaches as opposed to some, are strategies that are used for particular learners. So an example of this, so overall we want to provide a personalized education that's career and college prep for all of our students, no matter who they are, right? Personalized learning in our model and in alignment with Summit's model is a combination of project-based learning and includes self-paced modules. And I think that's where the concern about blended learning has come up. So within Summit, you have rigorous PBL plus the blended self-paced modules. Now, we wanted to make sure that all of our interventions are research-based. That's why we landed on the SIOP model, Sheltered Instructional Observational Protocol, which Dominic is happy to share more about. I know it came up at the last meeting as well. We still stand by our conviction that that's not a strategy that's in conflict with Summit's personalized model. And to really achieve personalized learning, it does go beyond, in our model, and we think our students deserve this, it goes beyond just the classroom level. We think that advisory is really the linchpin of the experience for students. We've seen the success locally at schools like City Neighbors. Our model is based on Big Picture Learning's model. They have 65 affiliate schools across the country. Students are in small advisories for their 4 years, where the teacher really gets to know that student, that advisor gets to know them. Not that the teachers of the regular subject classes don't. So I think I would say that the way we are going to personalize learning for all students includes the use of project-based learning. These are being labeled now as blended approaches, and the advisory model. Given the spirit of our application, the Da Vinci Collaborative, arts integration, and interdisciplinary learning are a part of that. And that's also a part of good project-based learning. A resource we always go back to is the Buck Institute of Education. They're sort of the national leaders right now in PBL. All of Summit's work is aligned with them. We've aligned our model for PBL with them. And same thing for big picture learning. It comes together through the project-based model, and it's really personalized and supercharged with the advisory program. We've heard a lot of demand, and our team has personal experience in providing internships. It also happens to be a core component of big picture learning. So I get really frustrated when I hear that we're too complex, we're going to try to do too many things, when I see schools across the country with similar demographics and resource constraints achieving schools that have PBL internship programs and robust advisory models. That's why we could have gone back and trimmed off these components to make it appear more or less complex, but we don't think we can achieve that deeper learning without these components. And we've aligned with 2 national organizations to help us do that. I hope that helps to
That's
get us
fine,
started.
thanks. I have a few more questions, so just be mindful of the time. I don't want to cut you short, but we got a lot to do. So let's go back to Summit Learning for a second. Just to clarify, you do not need to be a member of Summit Learning or pay an application fee. You have access to free curriculum,
That's correct.
and that's what you intend to use?
Yes, that's correct. It's
Well-
completely vetted, connected to Common Core.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
but we're going deeper than just using their free curricula. A teacher could go do that right now and get into the system. So we, upon our charter approval, we will work with them to become a partner school. They're not in the business of operating schools across the country. They have their own. They have their own 10, and they have 380 that would be like us. We'd be like 381. Using the curriculum, accessing the free professional development resources, and utilizing the technology platform.
And the question about professional development, there was a lot of concern about the inadequacy of the amount of time that teachers have and the access to the, actually where it's delivered. Why did you not submit a revised professional development plan? You referenced in your response, what I think is called a supplemental response, for example, the 1-week training for Summit. Is that correct? You did reference it, I think. Were you expected to revise this
No.
professional development plan? Why do you think you should not have submitted?
It did not specifically ask us to submit a revised professional development plan.
It being
The
what?
question was very simple. It just said, how would we implement a complex curriculum, and that's in quotations. So the state board is implying that it really isn't a complex curriculum in terms of teacher resources. And when we talk about teacher resources, we're talking about the resource of time. And so I understand how that could be conflated to include professional development. If we had been asked, and this is where I really feel that this was kind of a gotcha for us. If somebody had contacted us 2 weeks ago and said, in the way you did before the actual application review, somebody, Ms. Alvarez, contacted us and said, we need more information on how you're going to work with English language learners. And we happily presented that detailed plan. If you, she, anyone had called us anytime before yesterday and said, can you explain through your professional development plan how you are going to use teacher resources, we would have been more than happy to do that. But nobody asked us that. And this question did not address specifically professional development. It just had a general question about how you would implement it. So that's what we answered. And again, we would be happy to respond to all of these comments had we been given adequate notice.
I just have 2 more questions. One is around the recruitment of duly certified teachers, which is frankly something I didn't know anything about before. And I think what you said is that the school district bears some responsibility in that. As a charter, you're looking at the district teachers, correct, to hire from, or are you looking outside the district?
We're looking everywhere. Ms. Kashiani mentioned this earlier, and I'm sorry that came across as a an insult, if that's the word you want to use. It is our joint responsibility to recruit teachers, but yes, we know we have the primary responsibility to find our teachers. But we're also, I'm not saying that it's only your responsibility, it's our joint responsibility. So some doesn't mean all.
I'll just say in closing that I note, like you do, that the Charter School Advisory Board did recommend approval. I'll say I was impressed by the application, its volume and its content. And frankly, I'm impressed by the experience of the founders. I'm impressed by the MSDE grant, and I'm impressed by the persistence that you've shown in trying to get this approved. I'll just leave it there.
Thank you very much.
I have, I think I read I have one question, but I want to get to this simple question from the state. I very much took the question of implementation, how would you implement? And I didn't overly read into the quotes. I thought that they literally were quoting something from our original response. I don't think they were implying something, but
Okay.
whatever. Yeah, I never quite understand what people mean when they put things in quotes, because I don't think people actually know how to do that,
Agreed.
truth be told. So I think let's just put that aside for a moment. But I think that when I think of implementation, I actually would have thought that to implement something that is, let's take away the word complex and call it robust.
Okay.
A lot of cool stuff in there. I would think that how one would take the teaching force and prepare them for that, I personally think of that as part of implementation. I'm not trained as an educator, but when I've run organizations, I very much think about culture change and doing things differently than everybody else. I have to build in the process I'm going to use to bring the workforce along. So maybe we can agree to disagree, but we did not think that those questions were simple. We thought that they kind of got to the heart of the matter and forced us to take a fresh look at it. But the discussions about professional development were definitely not intended to be gotcha moments, like contrary. We took that as part of implementation, and so my question is somewhat maybe simple, and it could be for a lack of understanding on my part, but I'm drawing from the language in Ms. Alvarez's memo in what she just discussed. The difference between she references that their sheltered content instruction is different than SIOP. Can you help me understand those two, how those two things work in concert? And I apologize if this was explained in some other detail. I've tried to read everything twice, 3 times, but I'm not getting that.
It's the Sheltered Instructional Observation Protocol from the Centre of Applied Linguistics. They offer several 1 to 3 day trainings for general teachers. As the ESOL department here at Lansdowne High School, just over the city border to the county there, I had about 260 students from 56 different countries in the school. By training content teachers with the knowledge that I had gained at the SIOP trainings that I went to, I was able to change classroom culture throughout the school and the way that ELLs were treated in class. We have a language learning objective as well as a content objective. That's really the very succinct way of putting what happens. And that's really what SIOP means, is you conscientize teachers to what they're really at, to their use of words and to their use of language. And that is to a tremendous benefit of all students, not just English language learners.
Okay.
So by being explicit about language goals and content goals, you really make teachers and then their students in turn conscious of what they've achieved at the end of a class. And it's really a lesson planning tool.
So contrast that, so that's helpful. So contrast that with the sheltered content instruction,
Yeah.
which seems to be the one where
So
you do need either dual certification or 2
If
teachers.
you have a concentration of students who are not testing quickly out of the yearly WIDA scores, then what you might try to do would be create some kind of intervention to accelerate their progress to a higher level of English proficiency quicker. If you have at hand teachers who are dual certified, and more than I've had experience with teachers who are, then you can have sheltered instruction. What I also am curious about, what is common practice in Baltimore County, in ESOL, is that the English language learners, they need they need Algebra 1 for people with limited English proficiency. So you will often do team teaching where the ESOL teacher pairs up with the algebra teacher, and they're able to produce a class which really meets the needs of those students. Now, a lot will be contingent upon the intake that we get, whether that would indeed be necessary. But it isn't that clear to me that you would necessarily need to have a large number of the faculty be dual certified initially.
No, I think actually, when I went back through this, it looks like you just need 2 teachers
You
in the
just
room.
need 2 teachers, yeah. And you can meet the needs very well of non-English language learners
Okay.
and language learners.
That's helpful, because I
yeah.
literally didn't understand that.
Yeah. Thank
Other
you.
questions, sir?
Good evening, guys. As I'm reading from the memo, it says it did not meet the requirements laid out by the applicants. I'm sorry, I'm talking about for the first word question. Can you explain why in the initial or even in the supplemental, the basic, not even implementing Summit or not even implementing Big Picture, but even just the basics like the professional development was not implemented in the initial nor supplemental plan? And if it wasn't implemented in the supplemental, what are your thoughts about it? What are the professional development days and times are you going to do for the 2 in the winter and the 2 in the spring? How are you going to incorporate that, already having so many professional developments for Summit and Big Picture?
Sure. I'll get us started. And I think, once again, there were a couple mischaracterizations. One being that chart was quite literally just the intro 2 weeks for new teachers. So it starts with required training that is free through Summit Learning, since that really represents the key instructional approach and the vetted Common Core curriculum. So all teachers would start with those weeks in the summer, and then there's an ongoing relationship. We even get a mentor school that works with the school leaders as well to help implement, and we continue. All teachers must be trained continuously through the Summit program. They also have synchronous and asynchronous PD that's ongoing. We don't think that you can achieve this level of deep professional learning just with a few days across the year. That's actually something years ago when we were initially designing the school, we wanted to address that problem. And we're doing so not just through the partnership and the required training with Summit and Big Picture Learning, but also and this came up at our last presentation, in a trimester system, after each 14-week trimester, there's a full week of professional learning for the entire faculty and staff.
And that would give us those 2 days in the fall and the spring that Ms. Alvarez referenced. Those 2 days could come out of that full week of training. So the time is set aside for that.
And I wanted to mention it came up in the presentation that you just heard from O&I, that we were going to engage in training with Big Picture Learning, and they kept saying 2 days. Those actually were design sessions that we already did. They were for the founding team. We've already done training with them. That doesn't represent what our teachers need. That's what our board and our founding team, we've already worked with them, and we already paid that money to them. It's not a proposed contract. We already are an affiliate, and we have done training, and we're committed to sending our teachers to Big Picture Learning conferences and to pay some of their regional representatives to come do in-house trainings. We really want this, not just for the students, this continuum of learning with frequent breaks. We want that for the teachers. So the teachers are modeling being lifelong learners, so that they get that pause for deep professional learning every 14 weeks instead of a day here and there throughout the traditional school year.
Thank you. My next question is that regarding the Summit thing that you would be incorporating that is not a co-applicant, but you guys will be incorporated within the school. Is it, I don't recall, you can refresh my memory, but is it demographically helpful for Baltimore City? I know that you mentioned it is from California. That's maybe a different demographic. So,
It was
well, especially a
originated in
different demographic.
Oakland, where it's a high urban
Okay.
population.
Okay. And my another question is that big picture, I know that you said there's a lot of confusion with the graph, so I'll let you explain. On day one for AM workshops, big picture is only mentioned once out of the 10 days. And I know that you did say that there are days outside of this that they will be doing, but why is big picture only in there once?
It's doesn't require the level of training that Summit does. Being a big picture school means adopting all of the things that are in our application. So how I found big picture was when we were preparing our charter application, we were doing a lot of reading, and I came across this book that was called One Kid at a Time. And I couldn't put it down because everything in there was what I wanted for my school. And I come to the end and realize that this is an existing school. It's in a urban district with low-performing students, so it really fits what we want. And I said to myself, gee, I really hope the school is still in existence. And not only was it still in existence, but it was now a network of schools. So I immediately contacted them. I shared it with Travis. I read more about it. It was just a perfect fit. So big picture doesn't require teachers to be trained. It just requires that we have in place an advisory system, personalized learning, learning through internships, and other components that we've talked about. So the two, Summit is the curriculum, big picture is more like the school culture. And so that's why there's not a conflict, that's why they fit really well together.
And I'm sorry, my last question is that stated here, I'm going to read it really quickly. Additional personalized learning plans cannot be monitored by or implemented solely through advisory. Da Vinci does not explain or indicate what role in developing or monitoring these personalized learning plans content teachers will play. Can you, since you guys aren't explaining it enough, can you explain it to me and how, Yeah.
Sure. So we think to really personalize learning, the plan is important, but it's beyond that. It's a human connection. So the advisory is critical, but advisory isn't the only way to monitor those. That's another reason for.
You're saying advisory is just one piece of the multiple layers that was that explained in the, or was it just stated that advisory would be the part for personalized learning?
I think it's inherent to using the Summit model because literally every teacher and student and even the parents have access at any time to where the student is, what the goals are, where they're going, and where they've been in terms of project completion, assignment, mastery of competencies. So at any time, we're aware of this. Students also have to meet for a 10-minute, and it'll end up being more than 10 minutes in our model, per week with advisors to set goals, and that gets logged into the platform. And we have this full picture of a student, and the student understands why they're doing the particular project at that time and their goals on their path to college and career.
And just to clarify, the comment made about the math teacher doesn't know what the social studies content are. Each teacher contributes to the personalized learning plan. So the advisor sets sort of the holistic picture, and then the math teacher will input, these are the projects that our students are working on, this is how so-and-so is doing. So it's like a living report card. At any point, you have a snapshot of how Jose is doing in each subject, because the teacher they're all inputting information on, a daily or weekly basis into each student's plan. Yeah. So that's why this is such, this was one of these things that we discovered at a conference, and looked at it and said, wow, we don't have to start this from scratch. This is already available.
One of the big frustrations as a homeroom teacher and as a subject teacher is that only the homeroom teacher gets to see what all the kids are, what your student is getting all of his classes. And as a subject teacher, you just got a very narrow slice of this child. They could do great in your class and that blinds you, or they could do very poorly and that blinds you. The great benefit of our system is that all teachers are fully clued in all the time, along with the student, to how this child is doing as a person, for whom his grades or her grades are just data points. They don't define the child.
I know we're getting short on time, so.
I have a question, if that's okay. Is it okay?
Commissioner Richardson, yeah, I'm left here, yes, of course, please.
You can fill the time.
So, I too think it would be valuable to see the professional development that you just articulated, because this doesn't do it at all.
I agree.
And so I think it would be valuable, for me at least, to see what that looks like. I want to go back to the thread that Commissioner Kashani started around ESOL, and we ended up at the point where you said you just need 2 teachers. And I think in your response, you write about your math having 2 teachers. The social studies and science, because those are tougher to fill, because those content areas are pretty hard to fill. What's the plan then to have 2 teachers in those classes?
Well, I think that you would only need, I use math just as one example. I wasn't actually trying to say you'll only need a math one. I understand that actually probably one of the most challenging students for my ESOL students was always world history and very word rich. Math was one of the easier ones to fix. A lot would depend upon the number of students who are performing at a 1 or a 2 or below on their WIDA scores. Kids who are getting 3s, 4s, and 5s are usually able, with modifications, to stay in the regular school population. So there is a little bit of unsureness about how many students you would get, depending on who gets accepted into the school through the lottery. If you had a high number of ELLs who weren't above a 2 on the WIDA, you would need to make making a bigger provision for sheltered instruction for them, or not, or you simply allocate ESOL resources to those classroom teachers. You can have the ESOL teacher be an ancillary support to the classroom teacher, so they deliver ESOL enriched social studies without having to create a totally separate environment for them.
Just to clarify, when we talk about having 2 teachers in the room, that's a content teacher and an ESOL specialist.
Sure, I got that.
Okay, it's not 2 math teachers.
No, I got that part. It's just, and you cleared it up by saying you use math as an example.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was the only class you
No,
prepared
I
to
think
have these 2
I
teachers.
think language arts and social studies are every bit as challenging, if not more so, for the kids I've known.
I think my last question, well, next to the last, would be, during your presentation, you mentioned that there was some misunderstanding or miscommunication from the ONI presentation. I just want to know exactly what you meant so that we could try to clear up whatever you need cleared up tonight.
Okay, so I'll quickly go through this of notes that I made, and some of this I've already said. We were not asked to submit a revised professional development plan, and I think we really would have appreciated the opportunity before tonight, or before yesterday, to do that, which we would have been happy to do. The one that you got was a draft, and it was purely a draft, and it was a supplement to our original application. We were not asked in the application to list every, by date and, so forth, every professional development session we were going to have. So we're happy to do that, and I strongly will be happy to do that. The arts integration as a specific method of teaching, I don't think we said that in our application.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? Fair question, unfair to ask you to answer this on the fly.
Okay.
I want to make a proposition. All right. I want to hold that thought, because we're going to come back to this question, and I want to propose an alternative to what we were going to do tonight. But I want to let Chief of Staff Perkins Cohen ask her question. I'm not ignoring your question. I think it is the right question, among other right questions, but I want to come back to it, because that's not a fair way to ask you to respond to that. Ms. Perkins Cohen?
Okay, so I guess this is maybe the last question, but so when you were speaking earlier, you talked about the fact that that you didn't submit the professional learning plan because it was over and beyond what the state board had asked. But in question 1, the state board asked how you would implement a complex curriculum in terms of teacher resources, teacher resources being about professional learning. In question 2, it talks about how various elements would work to form a cohesive curriculum, which a lot of that would have to be about professional learning. That's questions 2 and 3. In questions 4, the state asked how you would prepare teachers and students to use a blended approach, which again has a lot to do with professional learning. So as a former operator of schools, and one of the most vital things that a school operator provides to, a good operator to schools, is professional learning and teacher recruitment and curriculum. But professional learning being one of the most vital things, I'm just unclear why it would be that you would need to be told to submit a revised professional learning plan, given that 4 of the 6 questions directly related to professional learning.
I would argue that in those initial questions, especially in the beginning, we did explain how our partnership with Summit and Big Picture Learning and our extra, the week of PD in between the trimesters and the mandatory weeks in the summer for all new teachers reflects a robust time allotment for PD. And like Helene said, we're happy to, the state
And Helene
board.
did just say she agrees that she should have submitted a professional learning plan, that this wasn't adequate. So I just want
I said that if we would be happy to do that if we were so asked during the past 6 weeks.
So now I'm going.
This did not ask us.
Now I'm going to so ask.
Okay.
So now I want to flip, so if State of Maryland, if you're watching, we're trying to do this by the spirit of what we're all trying to do here, okay? It's Big Brother someplace watching. Forget the 24-hour thing. 23 minutes, that was silly, my bad. I believe that Ms. Alvarez in her office, in good faith, put a lot of time into what, from the board's perspective, I have not talked to each individual board member, but I hope you can tell how much we reviewed this and have thought about it. And
we appreciate that.
like Commissioner Frank, I know we all have a lot of respect for Ms. Alvarez and her work, and there's no gotcha in there. So just kind of lose that thought. I beg you. Okay? Having said that, there's a lot of stuff in here that I'm kind of curious. Like Commissioner Richardson, if you say, we're caught now in a he said, she said, she said, she said, that's not right. I really want to know what you think. And I personally agree with Ms. Perkins Cohen. I think there's a definitely implied need for some deeper response on professional development, because the 4 of the 6 questions we understood to include references to what professional development would be. Okay? Shame on the state for not being more clear. So what I'd like to propose, no, you don't have to explain anymore, that you're good tonight, really. I would like to propose that we are not going to vote on this tonight. We would like to give you a chance to respond. I don't have the authority to tell Ms. Alvarez what to do, ever. That's her job, but I would like to suggest that this is not a task for Ms. Alvarez anymore. We have heard what she thinks. And it's not just her. She draws on a lot of resources, as she referenced. This is now back in your hands. Pour forth, respond to our response to your 6 questions. Okay? We will try. We will try. Christian will try. I won't. Christian will try. We will try. It may not be at night. We will post whatever your responses are in public. God knows we cannot be accused of lack of transparency on this one. That's why she read that. The responses will be posted. You respond as quickly as you can, but be your normal, thoughtful self. Right? Christian will start tomorrow morning to try to find a time when we can come. It might be at 8 o'clock in the morning. We don't know when that will be, and we do not know if it can be before January 8th. We are going to do our best. Aren't we, Christian?
Yes.
I keep saying this like we're going to do it. Respond. It will be posted. We will come back. We will not ask Ms. Alvarez to make the same presentation. We've heard it, it's in the public record, we've read the material, we will read the material. We will come, it will be we'll have you there, Ms. Alvarez will be here. We will literally ask, based on all the materials submitted last year, earlier this year, a few weeks ago, what will then be a few days ago, are there any additional questions for either the applicant or the staff? We have no presentation, no more PowerPoints, no more memos. You submit what you want us to know in response to her response. Know that we believe, and we will go to the mat believing, that her response was in line with the 6 questions that were posed to you. It was not a gotcha. So please, that's not what that was about. We're trying to be very thoughtful about this. This is also unprecedented for us. So we're not trying to be unfair. We're trying to get this right. So I
actually think that solution is
So how long am I giving you to
extremely fair.
respond? You tell me, what's a reasonable time frame?
Yeah, 1 week, I think, from
All right,
today.
so we're sitting here, what's today? The 11th. Thank you. Gentleman from the back
What?
says it's Tuesday, and she can't believe we did not know what that was. It's a long time. Can you do it faster? I'm sorry, I'm trying to, because if you do the 18th, I guarantee you we can't get together before the 20th.
By
But
Friday,
give it your
close of
best shot.
business?
Close of business Friday.
Okay.
This Friday. No.
This Friday to get
Yeah,
our responses.
no, relax.
For us to
No
respond to
typos.
this.
Miss Bondima Dr. Bondima just had a heart attack. All right, so close of business Friday. They will get the responses. They will be posted immediately for the board to review. They'll be posted publicly after we have a chance to review it internally. Starting. Yes, you can.
And I normally don't speak on these,
you
which
can. Go
is
ahead.
which is a practice that I love holding to, and I'm only going to break it for one thing.
Go.
And that is, given my communications with Summit, I am not devoid of relationships with some of the same organizations that you're referencing. I would appreciate knowing the rigor of that process from actually speaking with the Summit team. I would appreciate in your addressing of whatever the new understanding is of the responses, if you could address what happens if you do not receive or get accepted to Summit, given I understand directly from the organization, not through an application and not through secondhand knowledge, that their process is incredibly rigorous. Not everybody gets accepted. It is not a de facto or foregone conclusion that you will be. So in the event that you are not, what is your plan? That's my only qualifying question.
And we get it that's, I would say, outside of the technical questions that the state has asked, but because so many of the responses to the state's questions involves answers that reference Summit, I would like to, we believe that that's in bounds, like the professional development. I hope you would agree.
I agree.
So, like I said, we cannot guarantee that you will have all 9 board members at a meeting. That would be our preference. We only had 8 tonight, but it gets to be a little dicey when you get too much smaller, if you can imagine. So Christian will try. It will be any time of the day. The only requirement it is that we need to have the majority of board members, the CEO, Ms. Alvarez, and you. Sorry?
And there's a requirement for posting the meeting 2 days in advance for
Oh,
Open
God,
Meetings
yes.
Act.
As soon as we know this, it will be posted.
Right,
Good
just-
catch. Yeah, everything will be posted so everybody knows.
Okay. I think that's a fair.
No, not to, go ahead, Andy. I'm just trying,
I just wanted to ask the question, does this have to happen by a certain date? That's all.
well,
That was my only question.
my bad. I'm just trying to move us into the next meeting. So does this have to happen by, I'm trying to behave on an as soon as possible basis. If we have to wait till January 8th, I think the further out we go, the more if we vote to approve the charter nothing's a given, but if we vote to approve the charter, we move closer and closer to disadvantaging the team, and then you would have to decide whether you want to go forward. If we approve it and then you've determined that the time frame doesn't work, we can defer it to another year. Not ideal for you, I'm sure, but we have to just proceed with everybody in the best effort trying to get this group together. And I just want to emphasize, having tried to do that a couple times for a couple things, we cannot promise you, but we're trying now to be fair to your chance to respond.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
very fair. We very much appreciate your further consideration and all of your good questions. Thank you.
Okay. And Andy, I didn't mean to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get all technical on you at the end there. Well, you did. But, okay, so, having said that, we are going to defer the transportation services. My apologies to the transportation team. I can see you, Jacinta. I know you feel bad about this. But we are officially 57 minutes Yeah, you can go home. We are, you too, Da Vinci, you can go home too. We are 57 minutes behind, and we have 44 people signed up to speak, and we are going to respect that. I would like, now, the way this is, I was going to give us a break in between. If board members need to take a break, to go to the bathroom, do whatever you need to do, people should do it, but we're going to move right. I'm going to take a vote to adjourn this meeting, and then we're going to open the public forum because we do not have time to break. So let's do that. Can I have a motion to, well, let's see. I'm going to read upcoming meetings. On Thursday night at 7 o'clock, we have a public meeting, a chance for public input on our legislative platform. We're voting on that in January. Then we have Operations Committee at 10 on the 18th, Policy Committee at 3 on the 18th. The next chance to testify for portfolio review, if you don't want to sit here all night tonight, you can give up your spot and come back next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. It's the same drill. So think about that. Then the next time we'll all be together is on January 8th. PCAB is going to be here for board meeting at 5. PCAB on the 17th of January at 6:30, and then teaching and learning at 3:30 on February 5th. So they have a little bit of time off. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn the regular public meeting? Moved by Commissioner Hassan. Do I have a second? Commissioner Bondima, all in favor? Andy, everybody in favor of adjourn? Please, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody's in favor, 9 for, 1 absent. Commissioner Lynn voted. We are officially adjourned. All right.